Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I think we beat the young guys up over the week to understand what type of level of play we need from them and the expectation playing playoff football in Arrowhead, Giha, wherever stadium. Oh, it's not Giha? Oh, excuse me. My apologies. It's okay. Giha.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Wednesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours we've got you coming up later on this hour. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert, 10:30. We'll talk with her, get her thoughts on the weekend that was, the Eagles and Chiefs matching up. Coming up 10 days from now, February 9th, they're in New Orleans. We'll be heading down there on Sunday, bringing you all of the sounds and also social media sites. With the videos you can check out on our social media platforms. We'll be down there opening night on Monday night. Can we just rewind 2 years ago? Opening night, Monday night, just 2 years ago, do that one, the Eagles and Chiefs?
I like that one.
Same jerseys, just change the patch. Chiefs in white, Eagles in green. Playing on ice. No, I'm sure the field will be so much better now.
I've already seen Eagles fans go, I don't care about the jerseys. What about the field?
What about the field?
Because
it's the field.
If you didn't know this, they
Less
play
field,
on different
field.
They play on different fields.
Oh.
So the Eagles play on theirs is always going to be worse than the Chiefs field, apparently, according to some fans. It sounds like.
Well, the field in Arizona was natural grass, but it was naturally iced grass. But I do remember that controversy after it because the Sodfather came out and went in on Eddie Mangan. You lied. Sodfather. I didn't know who Eddie Mangan was, but 2 years later, we still talking about Eddie Mangan, and now I bet Eddie Mangan's sitting there like, son of a Eagles Chiefs, really? I gotta get thrown back into this again? Maybe we play some of those clips from Sodfather from 2 years ago. That was fun. That was an interesting day. All right, 913-912-4810. Again, Cynthia Freeland coming up later on this hour. We'll talk with Matt Verderam about 12:30 or so. Sports Illustrated's Matt Verderam. Get his thoughts on what he witnessed on Sunday out at Arrowhead Stadium. The commentary since then. I don't want to dive too much into the commentary since then with Matt. But really, what Matt has done is put together a panel of who's who of NFL media, writers, analysts, players, former execs, coaches, and they have compiled a list 1 through 50 of the most memorable NFL games in the Super Bowl era. Not just playoff games. Any game. Well, not preseason. Regular season, postseason, Super Bowls, the 50 most memorable. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah.
That sounds so daunting. It's like, you know what? It'd be cool to be at the top of Mount Everest just to see what it's like. And then you get to the bottom and you're like, nah, I don't even know where to start. Not happening. Not doing it. It's a daunting task.
You got to walk forward, baby.
Yeah.
You got to, up, I guess.
Yeah. I know it's taken them about 9 months or so to put this thing together. It's in the magazine right now. All 1 through 50. 1 through 25 released this morning. So we're talking to Matt Verderam about that. 26 through 50 released yesterday. Chiefs showed up with 4 in the 26 through 50.
Wow.
3 in the top 25.
7.
7 games. 7. The
So-
same amount of AFC championship games they've went to consecutively.
Would Derek Thomas
No.
sack record game be in there? Or?
No, it was just like greatest games, not necessarily feats that were
Okay.
just most
Okay.
memorable games. The crazy stat that I'm going to bring up with Matt Verderam about it is, of the 7.
Can I guess?
Yeah. Of the 7, how many are Mahomes? We're talking about every game ever,
man.
and that includes every Chiefs game ever played.
4.
You say 4?
Because
Not a bad guess. Yeah, 4 is not a bad guess.
Because I'm thinking the Colts game, potentially, when the Colts came back, that to me felt like one of the 50 greatest games. The Rams-Chiefs game is going to be in there, I would assume. That 50 points. That is Mahomes. Maybe the Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl.
That's in there.
That's
Both of those two are
Mahomes.
in there. The Colts one isn't in there.
The Colts isn't in there.
No, but the two you mentioned are in there.
The no punt game, maybe.
Not in there.
I'm trying to think of honestly games where the
Right.
Chiefs lost.
Well, it's Matt Verderam, so I don't think these ones are going to be
Yeah,
in there.
but it's like 37 panelists. Like they all voted on it.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's got like execs, former coaches, NFL media. Chris Berman is part of the panelists. Like all these different people. They had
And the Colts comeback wasn't in there?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too. The Colts
Man.
comeback was
conference calls and all of this stuff. But you can only have 50.
Yeah.
You can only have 50, and that's playoffs, Super Bowls, regular season games. Mahomes and the Chiefs. So the Chiefs have 7. Mahomes games 5. A tenth of the 50 most memorable games. I'm getting choked up about it. It's just I
Don't
can't
cry, Jason.
I can't believe this 7 years that we've witnessed and
cry.
experienced. But of the 50 most memorable games, not voted on like, oh, here's my opinion. Here's just one person's opinion. It's 40 people that have been covering the NFL for a long time and NFL historians. Mahomes has 5 of them.
13-second game.
That's the highest ranked one.
Yeah, 13-second game.
That's number
The
16 all time.
The Eagles Super Bowl. The Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl.
That comes in at number 44.
Is the Chiefs-Niners Super Bowl in there?
That's number 24. It's the top 25 last year.
Yeah.
And again, that's just well, Matt Verderam, he likes the Chiefs. No, that's again, Matt Verderam, he's one vote.
So Chiefs-Rams,
Rams,
which
is in
might
there.
be the outlier
number
because that's a
39.
regular season game. So that's 4. So there's one more game. Dylan, you want to take a shot on this one for number 5?
And it has to be Mahomes.
Has to be Patrick.
Let's just say we would call it the passing of the torch.
It would be the 2018 AFC Championship game.
Came in at number 35. 37-31 loss the Chiefs. Chiefs went 4-3 in these 7 games, by
Was
the way.
our Super Bowl
Yeah.
4 the other? Well, one of the 2 that non-Mahomes?
Super Bowl 4 was number 42.
Okay.
Was Super Bowl 3 in there?
No, it wasn't.
That
No.
is, that's tough.
It's close, though.
How is the biggest upset in the history of the game?
Well, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Chiefs stuff. I'm sorry.
Oh, my gosh, I'm
I didn't.
sorry.
No,
Oh, no,
no.
yeah, we were
I
talking
didn't. I
Chiefs
was only
only.
looking at Chiefs. I'll be honest with you. That might be like top 5.
My bad.
Right. So I apologize.
I was going from 4 to 3 on
yeah,
Super
so
Bowls. That's on me.
I was thinking just specifically Chiefs, and I'm like, no, you went the wrong way.
So there's one more
okay,
Chiefs
yeah.
game that we have not touched on then. So it was Super Bowl 4.
So when you said Super Bowl 3, I'm thinking like, well,
Is
Chiefs,
it-
Packers,
is
but
it-
obviously that wasn't Super Bowl
is
3.
it Super Bowl 1 just for
It's not a Super Bowl for the Chiefs.
Okay.
It is a postseason game, but it's right around 69. It's one of the more disappointing Chiefs
Oh.
games in Chiefs history before we got to 95, 97, 03.
You said after?
It was
4?
after 4. Yeah, it was the longest game in
Yeah.
NFL history. Christmas Day, Miami Dolphins losing in double overtime when many people around the organization say that might have been the best Chiefs team that they had ever assembled. And Ed Podolak had almost 400 total yards in the game. And Hall of Famer Jan Stenerud missed 3 field goals, including a 30-yarder to win it. And the Chiefs really felt like they were going to win the Super Bowl that year if they got past Miami. That was felt like they were
Who went to the Super Bowl and played maybe the worst game they've ever played against Dallas.
against Dallas.
Which would have been Chiefs-Dallas for a Super Bowl.
Yep, which would have been pretty cool.
Kickers, man.
Yeah, Hall of Fame kicker.
Yeah.
Missed 3, but that one came in at number 23. So the Chiefs today had 3 in the top 25. Number 16, the 13-second game, which, by the way, you got to put that at number 13. I mean, that just makes sense.
Did they actually?
No, they didn't. It was
Oh,
number
that'd have
16.
been incredible.
23 was the Christmas Day game, and 24 was the Chiefs-Niners last year. Those were the top 25. But that's at Sports Illustrated right now, SI.com. You can go and look through, because it's not just ranking them. They have panelists discussing those games.
Okay,
they
what's
talk
number
to,
1?
They talk to players at Ice Bowl. They talk to players that played in the games and things like that. And there's a couple of anecdotes from the Chiefs that I thought was interesting. So we'll talk with Matt Verderam coming up at 12:30 about that. And obviously he was out at Arrowhead with the Chiefs and Bills. So he's going to be down in New Orleans. He's in Mobile right now for the Senior Bowl. So, puts
Busy
this
man.
thing out. Yeah, puts this thing out, and he's got all these other things. He's got his, Senior Bowl notebook that he puts together every day from practices. So we'll talk with Matt Verderam. Again, Cynthia Freeland coming up later on this hour.
He has to deal with me texting him just random stuff. Just, hey, Copernicus, what's going on?
I told him we'll try to catch up down in New Orleans, so we'll see. We'll see if we can catch up with him down there. Since we'll talk a lot of football today, because there are some things that I want to talk about and some frustrations just to get off my chest. That'll come up a little bit later on, maybe in the 11 o'clock hour. But let's start with KU. Let's talk a little college basketball. K-State in action tonight against Oklahoma State, seeing if they can build off their win at West Virginia over the weekend. They are 7.5-point favorites against Oklahoma State tonight. This is a very winnable game for the Wildcats. KU, in the bounce back from the devastating loss at home to Houston and the giveaway. I mean, that was kind of like, Mahomes and Pacheco. That wasn't a turnover. That was a giveaway. Like you just fumbled the ball yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's a turnover, but it's sort of a giveaway, not a takeaway. People can say that would be, Houston making the plays, but also it felt like KU did everything they could do at the end wrong to allow Houston to be in a position to make those plays.
They let an actual Reggie Miller happen.
Yeah.
They let the Reggie Miller
3 steal 3.
Basically is what it was.
Well, it's also like you're up 6.
No free throws.
Right. but I mean you're up 6, so you got 2 free throws coming, and it's unfortunate that, DeJuan misses both of them, and then you get the 3 foul 3 or a 3 steal 3 and then go into double overtime and win. But how do they bounce back from this? And then you find out around shoot-around that all of a sudden DeJuan Harris isn't playing last night. Like, he hurts his ankle in practice, and it's like, all right, shouldn't be an issue. Like, they dominated UCF. That was like they went down there and just destroyed the Knights, beat them by 40 or 50, whatever it was. It was a ridiculous game where you're like, all right, well, just name your score if you're KU at that one. But UCF came out firing. They came out to get a little revenge. And I don't know how I can really explain what it felt like versus if you say the final score. Because I was trying last night to wrap my head around watching a team score 91 points, yet felt like the offense was stagnant and struggled at different times during the game.
Without DeJuan Harris, the ball movement.
But honestly, it's like, how? Like, you say, well, the offense, it sort of felt stagnant, didn't really feel like it, but it's like, but they scored 91 points. It's like, okay, they hit 10 threes, they hit 24 free throws. So there's
two guys hit 10 threes.
Yeah, Zeke and Coit were pretty good.
They also went 25 of 29.
Yeah, so 25 threes. So
No. 25 of
25 free throws.
Yes.
And 10 threes.
When you have KJ Adams go 6 of 7 and Hunter Dickinson
points.
go 10 of 12.
Yeah, 55 points right there that you get from behind the arc and at the free throw line. But they did have the possession in the first half or the possessions that stretch when they turned it over 4 straight times.
Yes.
Like, I think the DeJuan Harris missing was more of KU shooting 40% inside the arc when they're one of and consistently under Bill Self have been one of the best teams in 2-point percentage, and UCF ain't exactly defensive stalwarts inside the arc. Okay, you're not going up against the length and huge trees inside for UCF, but KU shot only 40% inside the arc. They're typically 53, 54%. I think that maybe is where you saw the impact of DeJuan Harris, but we also saw lineups that, I mean, I don't know that we may ever see again this year. Yeah. I would love, maybe somebody can check out Synergy, sports or stats to see how many minutes KU has played this year with KJ, Hunter, and Badunga on the floor at the same time. Because we saw that last night for a couple of, I don't know that I've seen this very often, this match. There were lineups out there, which was sort of what made it sort of inconsistent at times, or felt like it was, unorganized, disorganized at times. But again, 91 points because there were different lineups out there that you were trying to figure out. And Bill Self talking about, you got Shaq and Diggy and Griffin and Flory on the court at the same time. It's like, and AJ Storr. It's like,
who played 7 minutes.
Right. It's like, well, this lineup seems odd right here. You don't. So it was an interesting sort of game to try to take something away from, because KJ returns. Hunter Dickinson still has 24 points, but he's 7 of 17 inside the arc. DeJuan's not there. Storr didn't build off of what you were hoping he would build off of. And we'll see when DeJuan Harris gets back. But clearly, and by the way, big time for Coit, who was struggling from behind the arc.
Yeah.
And then goes and knocks down, 4 of them last night? He was
4
of 8.
4 of 8.
4 of 8, yeah. And then 6 of 10 was Zeke Mayo. So they were pretty good. And UCF, by the way, credit them. I mean, they came out guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
They shot 36 threes last night, UCF.
They started off that first half and then kind of through, 17 minutes left, and they had 12 threes, I think is what it was, in 23 minutes of game time.
Yeah, they hit 14 total. They
only
cooled
hit
off
2
a little
more.
bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were were they 12
that was 12, like 21.
Yeah, 12 of 21 or 22. I was trying to think of what the stat was at the time because they ended up cooling off there at the end, and KU went on their run and that stretch, and Coit did it again where he hits a big three in a big moment. And so you credit them for finding a way to come through and win. They go down to Baylor. We'll see what happens with that, but it was close to being a how did KU just lose back-to-back games when they were up 6 against Houston with 18 seconds to go, and then they were returning home on Tuesday to take on a team they beat by 40 already. That would be a rough 2-game stretch. Now, luckily for DeJuan Harris, it's a Tuesday game, not a Wednesday game like K-State tonight, so you've got an extra day for him to get healthy. I'm guessing Bill Self said he didn't know. I'd have to guess he'll play Saturday because Bill Self also said last night they were planning on him playing yesterday until he went to shoot around and felt like he couldn't go in the game. If they were thinking he was going to play yesterday, they got a day off today, a couple light practices, the trip to Baylor. I would guess he would be out there playing, but we'll see what happens with that.
Do you have more concerns or fewer concerns after this game for Kansas?
More defensively.
Yeah,
KU defensively, it's just not what we have seen from a Bill Self team in a while. And they've been pretty darn good. Like they're top 20 in like 3-point percentage defense, which some of the analytics will tell you that sort of ebbs and flows. The best way to play 3-point defense is to limit the 3-point shots. And, this team comes in and shoots 40% from behind the arc against KU and makes 14 threes. So if DeJuan's healthy, KJ's healthy, I still don't know what the heck they're going to get from AJ Storr. But
that's the frustration I think a lot of KU fans have is with
KJ
and with DeJuan. It's like when you have those two guys offensively, I think DeJuan
on the floor at the same time, it's like, okay, what do you get offensively? But then if they're not on the floor, okay, do you have the defensive presence that you like with Bill Self as a coach?
But you still need DeJuan to open up things for the other guys' offense. It's just I think AJ Storr again. We that's what it comes down to. We've said it time and time again, but it really is AJ Storr inefficiency and just almost unplayable at times. That's been I know KU fans will go to KJ because he's been there so long. They'll go to DeJuan because he's been there so long. Because I get it. KJ Adams has not really evolved a ton offensively, although I will say his free throw shooting has improved a ton.
6 of 7 last night. 2 big free throws, too.
I don't think he gets enough credit for
honestly,
that personally.
If he missed, I kind of feel like if he missed that first one, I was feeling like that was that might have been we're talking about, wow, another missed free throw at the end from your veteran guy. But KJ stepped up and knocked him down. And what my skepticism of AJ Storr is, I think there's 2 things. I think there's a hope and a skepticism. And I'll relate it to the Chiefs, okay? Because last year, with the Chiefs throughout the regular season when they were struggling, and then they had to go on the road, and all these questions about the offense, how they would play going on the road. And they answered those questions, and maybe their worst team in the Patrick Mahomes era, and they win a Super Bowl. And they can win a Super Bowl with their probably worst team.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they can. Can the Chiefs win a Super Bowl in the year that they have their worst team out there and they lose on Christmas Day to the Raiders? And it was like, okay, well, the postseason is just different for this team.
Yeah.
It's just different. I'm going to watch the regular season in a different way now because there isn't as much feeling of you'd better get the number 1 seed. You'd better get home field advantage because you haven't gone on the road. What's it going to look like going on the road, right?
Yeah.
So they did that. So this year, watching them at times offensively struggle, and after that Cleveland game came on the air, and I'm like, I don't have any concern with this Chiefs offense in the postseason. I got a lot of pushback of like, well, you're not watching this team. I don't care. I just don't see them turning this thing on offensively. Like, what have you been watching with the Chiefs? Like, it's different. They will do that. So there is that faith, right? There's the evidential recent history that we can see they have come through and turned it on. The only thing for AJ Storr is what Remy Martin did.
Yeah.
It's one. It's one guy. And that's the hope. The skepticism is, okay, it happened once. Doesn't mean it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that all of a sudden AJ Storr is going to find it in the tournament and find his role and then get hot and be a guy that can, drop 20 a game. Like, this just might be who he is. One game he'll play 20 minutes and drop 15. One game he'll play 6 minutes, and it doesn't really look like he fits on the court. I'm more skeptical than I am in a hope standpoint for him being Remy Martin. If Remy didn't do that, we'd be talking about this is another Remy Martin.
Yeah.
People are hoping this is another Remy Martin because that's kind of what you have to go off of right now for AJ Storr. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will get into some football, heavy football. Cynthia Freeland will join us on the other side of the break. We'll get into some commentary going on and what I think was missed last week and the last couple of days. And I hope it doesn't take place next week in the Super Bowl. I'm joking. We know it's going to take place next week in the Super Bowl. So I do want to talk a little bit about that. Matt Verderame, 1230, Mick Schaefer, 1 o'clock. More Zone next. expert joining us here in the zone. Cynthia, welcome in on this Wednesday. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. I'm just listening to that interesting. Gordy sounds like a little dog in that one, and Gordy's like 6 pounds, and he sounds little in that. I mean, he's a big boy. He's not a little boy.
Yeah, I know. We're thinking back to that. That was a couple, 3 years ago, maybe when that happened. I guess you would know because you would know how old your dog is. So I guess that would be 14 years ago to your dog.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, now he's being loud again. I think he hurt himself. But it's funny. Now we have 2. There was only 1 dog then. Now there's 2 dogs. Everything's good.
Yes, there you go. Cynthia Freeland is our guest. No dogs winning on Sunday. You like that? You like that, Cynthia?
Both. There we go. That's a professional segue right there.
Yeah. All right. We are off to a rousing start. Both favorites end up winning on Sunday. And by the way, you tweeting out after the game was over that, your preseason Super Bowl prediction of Eagles and Chiefs has come to fruition. So that works. I hope your preseason prediction of who wins is wrong, but we'll, get to that next week of breaking down this game. But let's start with the game on Sunday night and what you saw from that game, Cynthia, and what's your takeaway from yet another Mahomes-Allen classic that came down to a field goal in, it was a touchdown in the 13-second game, but that was overtime, but came down to a one-possession game there at the end.
The Mahomes running in the playoffs is, I don't know if anyone has an answer for it. I don't even know how the Eagles are going to have an answer for it because it's just such a different thing. It's funny because he saves it, right? It's not quite the same as what we see in the regular season. So I think that was one of my biggest things. And I mean, obviously, I love the Justin Reed checkmate because all of the chess stuff I've seen him do over the years has been really fun. But it's just the thoughtfulness that defense is constructed with, the one-on-one situations that just really made it very hard for Josh Allen to find the right guy. And it's you have to give all credit to Josh Allen this season. He has come so far in terms of what we've seen from him, not turning the ball over, making great decisions, things like that. I mean, there's a reason why he's very likely to be your MVP this season. And the defense was so well constructed, the chess game there was just so much in favor of what the Chiefs were doing, creating just impossible situations for Josh Allen. And that was something where I'm like, wow, Spagsman is bad. Obviously he always is, but specifically for whatever reason against the Bills, it's like he has a magical foresight of this is what they're going to do. And even when Josh Allen kind of changes some of his identity to be more more predictably not going to turn the ball over-y. I don't know if that's a good word, but that's where it got really special in this matchup.
Yeah, and I wish that I wish they would change the way they count quarterback rushing stats and take away the kneel downs and don't count those for the stats because Mahomes averaged 3.9 yards per carry in the game with the 2 kneel downs. He averaged 5 yards per carry if you take away the kneel downs, the 2 rushes for -2 yards there. But I wanted to talk about, it was one of the things I was going to bring up. So I'm so glad that you went to that of, Mahomes carrying the football because, I put together all of the numbers for Mahomes and Allen and Lamar and Burrow before the playoffs started of just looking at them comparatively of what they do in the regular season versus what they do in the postseason. And it is crazy, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, how much, and there were 14 different categories here that I looked at, and Allen and Mahomes both increase from their regular season numbers to their postseason numbers in 12 of the 14 categories. It's just absurd. Lamar, we've talked about it, unfortunately, he increases in only 5 of them, which means, he drops in 9 of those categories, gets worse in the playoffs than regular season. Joe Burrow is 6 of 14 that he improves on. And one of the things that Mahomes improves on is rushing in the postseason. It's more rush yards per game by 10 for a quarterback, pretty legit. Yards per rush, almost a yard more in the postseason. He averages twice as many touchdowns per game in the postseason rushing the football and half as many fumbles lost. Now, they did lose a fumble there in that game, but, is that really a fumble lost in terms of rushing? But still, you get the point. And this one was really interesting because of some of the designed runs. They don't design Patrick Mahomes to run very often, and we
probably don't want him to very often.
No, I mean, once that kneecap was facing east, not north, they sort of changed the way they did that. But they had him run an option in the Super Bowl. He ran an option against the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs, the one in which he was knocked unconscious. And so we've seen him do that a couple of times. These, I don't know if you would call them designed runs. They went down as designed runs. These felt like, read options, because both of them on 4th down and 1, it was the play they ran in the overtime against San Francisco last year on 4th down. And then that goal to go from the 10-yard line was the same exact play they ran to Kareem Hunt for his 12-yard touchdown. Their first and 4th touchdown of the game, Cynthia, was the same play. It was just Mahomes kept it the second time. Like, it's not exact. I don't think it's designed runs. I think Mahomes just finds ways and understands what the defense is giving him and knows in this situation in the postseason, I'm going to pick up the first down, and I'm not going to try to see if this play works or that play works in the middle of a game, in the middle of the season. This is crunch time, and every single play and every possession matters, so I'm going to have to rush the ball. And he outgained Josh Allen on the day. That was – I would have lost a lot of money if you just said, hey, simple bet, you get even odds.
More. Right.
Even odds. Allen or Mahomes rushing yards. Yeah, I'll put a lot of money on Allen.
I mean, I think most people would have, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's that's the thing, and especially because all season long, when you close your eyes, at least one of the things I think of as a characteristic of Josh Allen this season is rushing touchdowns, right? Using his legs to, when all else breaks down, it's like, well, I'm just, I'm built like a defensive end, so I'm just going to go run. I'm going to run it in, so we're going to be good here. But I think the cool thing about this game that was really one of the things to like didn't get, in my opinion, enough like talk about is the fact that one of the things the Chiefs defense does so well is tackling. They have the best missed tackle rate, so meaning lowest, right? Best for defense is lowest. So that is like 10.4%. And that also extends to quarterbacks. So it's not like it's not necessarily even just James Cook or whatever, Amari Cooper in this game, even Khalil Shakir, whatever. But it's also when the quarterback runs. And that was something that I thought was very much on display in this one, given that Josh Allen wants to run. He certainly does, right? And the fact that he really couldn't speaks a lot to what the defense can do, and that extends forward to this next game, which we'll get to next week. But that really is going to be a very important point and an important part of the matchup next week when we talk ahead of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's funny because I brought that up last week because after the game was over in Week 11, Nick Bolton and a couple of other defensive players were lamenting some of the yards that the Buffalo Bills picked up on missed tackles, yards after contact. And, Curtis Samuel had a huge one. It was like, I think it was 3rd and like 11 or 3rd and 15, or it was 3rd and like 3rd and something, okay? And and he was about 6 yards behind the first down marker. And Shamari Connor had one-on-one, and he missed it. And Curtis Samuel picked up the first down on like another 7 or 8 yards. They scored a touchdown on that drive. That might have been a 4-point missed tackle in that situation if he just makes the tackle, because it's not 4th and 1, it's 3rd and 6 or 7 at that point. And I brought it up last week, Cynthia, that the Chiefs' season this year, their highest game in which the most missed tackles was against the Bills in Week 11, in which they missed 13 tackles. The Ravens was second most with 11, but they averaged about 5.5 per game, and they missed 13 against the Bills in Week 11. And in this game, Cynthia, Kareem Hunt forced almost as many missed tackles himself as the Chiefs had on defense against the Bills.
There's an interesting stat that we looked at with the Next Gen stats. Now, this doesn't extend to the playoffs only. It's every game played since 2018. And it's if you miss fewer than 8 tackles in a game, this makes me feel a little bit like Anchorman, but you'll hear what I'm saying here. 67% of the time you win the game. If you allow more than 16 missed tackles, you lose over 80% of the time. So there is a sweet spot where it's a little bit interesting, but the Chiefs are closer to that bottom edge.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's a little bit different in the playoffs, but there's your anchorman stat for the day.
Yeah, so 67% of the time, you win 100% of the time if you miss fewer than 8 tackles.
Exactly.
There you go. That's just math. We're just mathing here. That's what we're doing. and it's an interesting – thank you. I nailed it. And it's an interesting sort of a number because after the 2018 game I don't want to say after the 2018 game. I think it was the 2021 loss to the Bengals. The Chiefs went and revamped their defense, and that's when they got Justin Reed. They drafted McDuffie. They got Karlaftis. They went out and got Brian Cook as a safety. Leo Chanel that was brought in the third round. And I made a note of it on draft night that night and said, the Chiefs have clearly said, we are going to get faster on defense, but we will have tacklers. We will, because they missed a number of tackles in that Bengals game in the AFC Championship. They looked slow. They looked old as a defense. And they went in that offseason and changed everything up. And now they're going to 3 straight Super Bowls by doing that. But the tackling part is so interesting because I think after that Bengals game loss in the AFC Championship is when they looked in the mirror and said, we got to do something defensively. Spags, you're awesome what you're doing, but we got to have tacklers. And probably Spags said, Veach, we got to have tacklers. Okay, we need guys that will tackle. And I don't know why any team would ever throw a wide receiver screen against the Chiefs or throw a one-on-one on the outside against the Chiefs, because Justin Reed took care of Khalil Shakir in this game as well. The Houston Texans kept trying to do it. They are one of the more, especially the secondary, one of the more sure tackling teams that I can remember. And that was a real sea change after they lost to the Bengals. And so it's not a surprise in terms of where the Chiefs are and what those numbers say from how they've improved so much defensively since that Bengals loss.
Well, it's like, fundamentals. It's interesting because this shows me another area where Brett Veach and Andy Reid are on the same page, right? If you're choosing to select for tackling, sometimes you give up something else, for example, right? Like, sometimes, for example, most of the time it's coverage stats, right? You're either really good at things in front of you or typically good at getting back and handling things behind you. But in this case, it doesn't seem to, like, how Spags wants to play, how Andy Reid's orchestrating everything working together, and the people who Brett Veach is bringing in, they all are working together, which is ideally how you'd like it to go. I think other teams would be like, well, yeah, we'd like this too, but it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of effort.
Yeah. Visiting with Cynthia Freeland, I loved some of the comments. It was unfortunate for the Bills, some of the comments that came out after the game was over in the locker room. It was not the Houston Texans game, which is, why I have a lot of respect for the Bills. And quite frankly, I hope they win one. I really hope Josh Allen gets a Super Bowl. I really do. I think he's too damn good of a player. I respect him so much, and I do feel bad for how crushing some of these defeats are, and knowing that your season's over, you got to wait another year just to get back in that position. But what O'Cyrus Torrence, I brought this quote up a couple of times, and O'Cyrus Torrence saying in the postgame that they showed blitz and pressure a number of different times, obviously throughout the game, but they didn't really bring it from where they were showing it. They were bringing it in different spots, and they showed Reed. They didn't show McDuffie because McDuffie, didn't give a tell or anything. And Brian Cook, to his credit, when they sent Shakir in motion, he didn't then start running over to where, Trent McDuffie was. He stayed in his spot and didn't start running until the snap, so to disguise the blitz. But O'Cyrus Torrence said they had been doing it differently all game. And then on that play, when they slid protection left because they were coming from the opposite side they showed, then they brought that. And his quote was, it was like Spags spent the entire game setting up the moment for that one pressure. And I thought,
probably did.
Yeah, he did. He probably did.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, though, is like, I've been really thinking about, like, I have a friend who has gotten into, like, real poker, like an actual poker player. And the strategy of bluffing is, and, Malcolm Gladwell wrote about it in his most recent book, but it's so interesting about bluffing because you have to do irrational things, seemingly irrational things, very infrequently, right? Like just very once in a while to put the seed of doubt in your opponent's mind. And that is what both Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are really good at. Now, again, you have to have the players to be able to execute this. You can't just, like, do it with, every John and Joe and Jimmy, whatever. You have to have the right people to do it. But it's just so fascinating when it works because it's beautiful. Like, it's crazy to have, like, just this little seed. Like, that's where Bill Belichick has an advantage, too, right? You always think he's thinking about what happened in 2004, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I said yesterday that, you know, when we were talking about Spags, I said, you know what, I'm guilty of this, and I feel bad about it. We've gushed about how much we like Spags in Kansas City, and he might be one of the nicest humans, you know, I've ever met. Just a really good guy. Luckily, a great guy to go along with being a great defensive coordinator. But I haven't, you know, really at all. Like, when we're talking about the pillars of this dynasty, it is so much about Hunt, Veach, Reed, Mahomes. And I was checking myself yesterday. I'm like, you know what? Moving forward, like, I think it's about damn time that, you know, from what we've seen, in that we say Veach, Reed, Spags, Mahomes are the guys in this dynasty, because he has earned his flowers time and time again. And I'm guilty of it. I've left him out. I'm not doing it anymore.
You know, my best friend from college played for him and the Giants, so on some Super Bowl winning teams for the Giants. So I've been familiar with him in a more, you know, first person. He's never coached me, clearly, but, you know, a more first person way for a long time. And it's been kind of amazing to see someone who has done the thing that's really hard, which is adapt and stay kind of nimble, but also rely on fundamentals and principles in a way that drives success. Like, that's a really hard thing to balance, right? Usually you're either good at being like boy wonder, you know, like some of the coaches are known as, or you're good at being like old school football bro, and typically you're not. But I actually think he's both.
Trying to think of who played for Spags with the
Matthias Kiwanuka.
I was going to say Boston College or Northwestern. Which one?
Matthias Kiwanuka.
Okay.
He's a wonderful human being too, and no.
Awesome.
So his kids are his daughter's my goddaughter.
Wow. That's cool.
It's been cool. Listen, you know, obviously we're only in our 20s, Bill, so it was just not that long ago.
That's right. His newborn, just a brand new child, just born last week.
He was like Doogie Howser, you know, you just played in the league really young.
That's exactly right. That's duh.
Even that reference dates me, but whatever, we're good.
Right. Real quick on this one, and then it'll allow me to transition to the quarterbacks. And that is, you know, that 4th and 5, what Spags did in running that reminds me of Week 11 on the 4th and 2 when Josh Allen said after the game their tendencies have been zone in that situation, and they had a zone beater, and they went to man, and as soon as he snapped it and saw man, and he said, oh, bleep. But he made a play, and he ran for the touchdown, and they won the game. He darn near made a play in an bleep moment that, wait, they went against tendency because sometimes Superman has to put on his cape, and Mahomes has done that a lot. Josh Allen, it would have been putting on his cape if Dalton Kincaid caught the ball, but watching the angle from behind the goalpost, from behind the offense, man, that ball fluttering and sort of coming down like a slider, Kincaid stopping his full momentum running one way and coming back the other. It's a little unfair to put that on Kincaid in the drop. That was a difficult catch. In the lights, Tyreek Hill always complained about the Arrowhead lights too. So just as a small little, you know, nugget to go along with that. But if he catches that, it's Allen putting on his cape again when Spags got him. And that's what great quarterbacks do. You might get them, but they find a way to get you back. And that's where maybe it's the difference between Mahomes and Allen in the postseason. I don't think that's necessarily fair, but it is certainly where Mahomes has elevated himself to all-time status and GOAT conversation status, because in those moments he finds a way to come through way more times than not. Other guys have to make plays around him too, but I just thought about that with that 4th and 2 and then the 4th and 5, both times the Bills getting fooled. Allen beat him once and almost beat him twice, and we see that from the defense, but we certainly see that from Mahomes a lot.
This is where I think psychology does come into play, because as much as I'd like to say, like, you know, same person, same situation, same, I don't know. I think there's like, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a degree in that. I mean, maybe I could go back and get one, but I'm sick of student loans, so maybe not. But what we're talking about here is like, you know, a belief, you know, I don't know what the word momentum means, but something like that. And perhaps that is something that, I don't know, some teams have psychologists. Maybe, I'm sure the Bills do too. Like maybe he has to do like some, you know, EMDR or something to get rid of that.
Maybe they do. Real quick on the offensive side, because the Chiefs were so good in this game, and I loved that, I pointed out that they scored 2 touchdowns on the same exact play and a formation design that they got from the Ravens last week, that the Ravens ran against the Bills, which is just brilliance and great. But how much, we talk about this throughout the year and what they'll look like in the postseason, but how much do you think Andy Reid and Matt Nagy and the rest of the offensive staff, Pat Mahomes, whatever, how much do they build the plane during the season? And how much maybe is the plane already built, they're just not utilizing some of the engine that they plan on using later on?
My guess is that the way it works is there's some foundational pieces that are like the Bills' foundational moments or whatever, a specific situation that they're like, all right, when we see these types of defenses or this type of team or whatever, this is the tree that we're gonna rely on to help us understand. And then they add certain branches or they add certain extra folds and wrinkles based on some things opponents have done that will help them out, in terms of recency and recent form. So I think that there's always some fundamentals there, but then adding some flair. And when you have the type of communication relationship, the way that these teams have worked together, this team has worked together for so long, I think adding those wrinkles and folds is probably easier and probably something that I would imagine a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's such a competitor, enjoys doing. Same thing with Chris Jones, same thing with kind of all of the stars, adding to I'm seeing this, so I'm going to do this type of thing.
Last one real quick for you. We'll get a breakdown next week of the game, but is there an early sort of matchup that you're kind of starting to dig into with Chiefs and Eagles that may be a big one that we'll be talking about next week?
Yeah, to me, it's a lot going to come down to the run game in general. Be it through Mahomes being able to overcome some woes on the O-line and make up for some potential pressure coming in a way that's not great, or be it what's going on with Saquon Barkley and how they're going to have a plan to specifically stop him while not surrendering, yards and touches to a Dallas Goedert, for example.
Yeah, nope. We're looking forward to that. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. Cynthia, great stuff as always. Really appreciate the time. Are you heading down to New Orleans, or are you staying in L.A. for this one?
Well, I'm going to New Orleans, but that's next Tuesday. But first, I'm going to the Pro Bowl, which I'm really excited for.
Nice.
It's my first time ever going to the Pro Bowl.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty excited to see what that's all about. A little Pro Bowl action coming my way.
Very cool. That is awesome. So we'll be heading down there on Sunday to New Orleans. So maybe we'll catch up down in New Orleans. Thank you for the time, as always. Looking forward to our conversation, breaking down this game. Thank you, Cynthia, as always.
Safe travel.
Absolutely. You too. There is a Cynthia Freeland heading to the Pro Bowl. You know what? Mahomes isn't heading to the Pro Bowl.
Drake May is, though.
The guy can't even get a Pro Bowl. Did Russell Wilson get a Pro Bowl invite? I don't know.
Russell Wilson got one. Once Snoop Huntley got one. Yeah. I think
it's funny because it's like, are they just not giving Mahomes the Pro Bowl because he can't participate in it?
Yes.
Because by at least naming him, it'd be like, okay, he made a Pro Bowl yet again.
Yeah.
As an alternate, but whatever. But the joke and that, this guy, man, he just keeps winning these postseason games. He's not even a Pro Bowler. Like
Mitchell Schwartz, no Pro Bowls, but Snoop Huntley, Drake May, Russell Wilson this year, yeah, they are.
Mahomes went out there and played like that. He's not even a Pro Bowler against that Bill. The Bills' defense gave up all that stuff to the Chiefs' offense. They only have a couple of Pro Bowlers on their offense, and it's like an offensive lineman and like a tight end that didn't do anything. That's how bad that Bills defense is. A non-Pro Bowl quarterback torched him in that game. That's rough. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We've got some sports or leisure tomorrow.
I thought you were about to say today, and I was like, fiction. No,
Yes,
we don't.
Sports or leisure tomorrow, and we give away $25 to Johnny's Tavern. They are letting you know that, hey, with that $25, or maybe if you don't have a gift card, they've got a really cool special coming up this Sunday. Okay, this Sunday.
Sunday.
59% off. Why 59? I can't figure out what that number is as to why they decided to go with 59. Not 58, not 60, because 58 wouldn't be enough. 60 would be too much. 59 perfectly.
Because you can lick your plate.
Ah, you licks the whole thing.
Yeah.
LIX that thing. 59% off, because Super Bowl 59 this Sunday. 59% off any specialty pizza, dine-in only. 59% off Sunday, dine-in only, any specialty pizza at Johnny's Tavern.
Is huge.
Those specialty pizzas are huge.
Yeah.
They really are. That's better than a 2-for-1.
That is.
It's better than it's 9% better.
9%.
That's an extra
better.
slice better. It's an extra slice better. They're just going to throw a slice on top of that just for S's and
Gosh,
G's.
I want Johnny's right now.
I do too. I like Johnny's pizza. I want some pizza. I brought a banana and an orange in for lunch.
You are very healthy. I brought in like Southwest bean soup from Campbell's.
I brought a banana. Today's my cheat day. It's my cheat day from pizza and everything. I was like,
it's your cheat day. You get fruit.
I'm allowed to cheat. I get fruit today. Duval.
I think I got it down.
Duval.
Less enthusiasm, Jason. You're too enthusiastic.
Sorry. Duval.
Wow, that was some harmony right
That's
there.
exactly right.
Is that Boyz II Men?
ABC, BBD. That's exactly what it is.
No, because we can't do it because Motown Philly. We're actually
yeah, you're right. We can't do Motown Philly.
like 98 degrees.
No
or
way.
who are we now instead?
I don't know.
NSYNC? Backstreet Boys?
I don't think we're in sync yet. I think we're getting there.
Okay.
You know, eventually.
Couple more years.
It'll happen. It'll get there. I mean, I think. I don't know. I hope. I'm guessing. There's a chance. Probably a long shot, but it's better than 0%, I would say. Maybe not much, but it's better than 0%. We'll see. All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. Thank you to Cynthia Freeland joining us. If you missed that, check out the podcast. We'll talk with Matt Verderam coming up about an hour and a half from now and get his thoughts on Chiefs and Bills. And then I'm not sure we'll get into the Chiefs and Eagles just yet. There is a lot of time to start breaking this game down. And yes, Saquon Barkley is a scary, scary individual. And what he can do anytime he touches the ball, you just never know if he's going to go for 60 or 70 or 12.
Tiger Woods.
That's sure. Yes, that's right. Saquon Barkley. I remember that's what he was called when coming out of Penn State. Saquon Barkley. I'm like, yeah, the dude has tree trunks for legs, man.
I told him that last year. I said, you
wanna pick up that name?
I'm picking the papers.
No, I'm just saying the name you just dropped of like, oh, when I was hanging out with Saquon.
Can I not?
Anyways, go ahead.
But I brought up, hey.
I'm speaking from a place of jealousy, Sterling. That's all it is. I'm projecting my jealousy onto you to diminish your life experience because I didn't get to have a conversation with Saquon in Vegas last year. Go ahead.
All I was literally saying was I called him Tiger Woods to his face, and he loved it. He was cracking up. Tommy DeVito was there. Remember when Tommy
Cutlets.
when he was like the talk of the town?
Yeah, Tommy Cutlets.
And he was cracking up, being like, "That's what we're going to start calling him now."
Was it at the Super Bowl or was it a different time?
Super Bowl.
Okay.
He's like, "That's what we're going to start calling him now in the locker room." And then of course,
he didn't
because
stay in the locker room.
He left.
He went to Philly. It'd be odd if the Philly locker room was calling him Tommy Cutlets. You know, of the Philly locker.
Hey, Saquon, what was it like playing with Tommy Cutlets?
Hey, Tiger Woods. Hey, Saquon. Had he heard He'd probably heard Saquon.
Yeah, he's heard Saquon.
Saquon, yeah, that's been like the main thing with him. From
so I just think we need to get that going. TM, I'm trying to trademark it. I don't know how to do that. I'm not Ben Franklin stealing people's trademarks or anything.
Is that right?
I don't know if he did or not, but I figured, sorry, Ben Franklin, didn't mean to take a shot at you, but we're playing. Chiefs are playing, the Eagles, and they have a bridge called the Ben Franklin Bridge, so we got to take our shots at Philly all we can.
I think you're safe. We won't be hearing from Ben Franklin about your.
You think so?
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So what is misattributed? Almost every quote to him or Winston Churchill?
Yeah.
Almost every quote that's ever been quoted, it's like, that was Winston Churchill, right? No, that was actually Rex Ryan. I know you think that that's a Winston Churchill thing, but, ooh, look at those feet. Winston Churchill. No, I think that was a Rex Ryan one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was Rex.
Could be both, actually.
Look at the toes on that.
Shocking that was Winston Churchill.
Ben Franklin.
That actually was, yeah.
Michael Scott. Rex Ryan.
Can we talk about the fact that
Yes.
the Eagles in Philly celebrate a fictional character?
Rocky?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it's
dumb.
I was hoping you were talking about Rocky because I didn't want to be the one to break the news to you that Ben Franklin was real.
Oh, yeah, like a guy would go outside with a kite during a thunderstorm. Yeah, okay. Sure.
Okay. Well done. I like that.
But, let's be real. What are you doing, Philly? I go there, live there for a couple of years. The amount of people who are taking pictures with this fictional character, this monument, this statue, that's your prized possession? Grow up.
Clearly, you haven't seen Rocky 3 or 4 or any of the good.
It's a good movie. I'm not disagreeing with the movie.
Well, it's
but what, Kansas City is going to have, I don't know, the Hallmark movie that was made and put that and make a statue.
Especially when they have like an all-time great heavyweight from Philly that they could embrace and have statues of and run the stairs and all that stuff. But that's besides the point.
Hey, kid, get your water ice. Let's go take a picture.
Wooder.
You're like, what?
Wooder. It's weird because like Wooder certainly, but I got a buddy that I coach with who's from Georgia who says Wooder.
Yeah, it's like the South
different
and
places.
Philly somehow shake hands and don't know how to pronounce water.
Yeah, and he's a good sport about it in that I have this thing that I have to do it. Anytime he asks his son, he's like, "Hey, buddy, you got your water?" I would always then come in and go, and your water. Do you have your water too? And he laughs. Yeah. I don't know if it's one of those ha 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 laughs, but he seems to enjoy it. So I keep doing it. I can't stop. Anytime he says water, I got to say, well, also your water, too. It's like my mom would say washing machines or Washington, D.C. I'm like, there ain't an R. Just like there ain't an A in Missouri.
Missouri.
There ain't an A there. Sorry. Maybe in Canada, eh? Missouri, eh?
What's funny, so I like Philly. I lived there for 3 years, so
You're an Eagles fan.
I'm no.
ELGLSES.
I am fine when they're not playing the Chiefs and the NFC. I do like them. I always say because I liked Andy Reid actually when he was there. Funny enough.
Yeah.
But this week and I guess these next week and a half, I am team hate Philly.
Good.
I'm team making fun of Rocky.
To hell with Will Smith and the Fresh Prince.
I love they call it Rocky Steps. When it's literally to one of the best museums in all of the United States, but it's the Rocky Steps.
Yeah.
What's inside there? Yeah, we don't know. We don't go in there.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
Next 10 days, you know who I'm rooting for? The dude that spun Will Smith around on his shoulders.
Yes.
On the in the basketball court. That's who I'm rooting for.
Yes.
To heck with you, Will. You know, west or east, south, north. I don't care what part of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Born and raised on that playground. That dude that spun you around, I'm a fan of his. Unless he's an Eagles fan, then to heck with him. Then I'm not a fan of his at all.
The Chiefs are like throwing DJ Jazzy Jeff out of the house. That's what we need.
Chiefs or Uncle Phil? Hell
Andy,
yeah.
someone do this.
Oh, somebody
I
needs
don't
to.
have
Conrad.
I don't have Conrad McGorkin. I don't have the ability to do this. TM, tag me, Homestretch KC. Get a picture of Andy Reid as Uncle Phil. So it'd be Andy Reid throwing out
DJ
like
Jazzy Jeff
or Nick Sirianni.
That's a.
I think it'd be. I feel like Nick Sirianni would be the good one. So Andy Reid throwing out Sirianni would be.
Yeah, that would work. I'd like that one. Andy Reid, the winningest coach for both organizations playing in a Super Bowl.
Wow.
Is, I mean, clearly the only time that's happened, but an unbelievable stat that the man is the all-time winningest coach in Philly and Kansas City. You know, and they match up again.
You sure it's not some fictional character that Philly fans want to try and claim?
Yeah, that was, there was a fictional character. They did a movie about it. Dick Vermeil, I think, was the coach. That was the fictional character then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's a real coach, but he was in a movie that they made up the whole thing. And the coach.
And about that guy who
It's Richard Vermeil. Sorry, Dick Vermeil coached with the Chiefs.
Was it Unstoppable?
Richard Vermeil.
What was that movie about the guy who
Invincible.
Invincible. That actually was
Vince
a good
Papale?
movie.
Is that
yeah,
right?
Vince Papale.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a good movie. I'll give him that.
I thought it was Marky Mark. Was it Vince Papale? I thought it was Mark Wahlberg. Are we thinking of a different movie here? Because I'm pretty sure Richard Vermeil.
You're thinking of the documentary.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yep, Mark Wahlberg.
You're thinking of White
This was
Men
the
Can't
biopic.
Jump.
Okay.
Him and what's his name? I always get the you know what I'm talking about.
I don't.
The guy in White Men Can't Jump.
Woody Harrelson?
Woody Harrelson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes?
Wesley Snipes.
How do you get Mark Wahlberg and Wesley Snipes mixed up?
That's tough.
That's odd, man.
Always hard for me.
King and the Duck? Which one? Rosie Perez? And how do you get Mark Wahlberg and Rosie Perez mixed up? I mean, come on, man. They both like boxing, I guess. I guess you can get them mixed up that way. But really, no other way with that. But we'll be heading down to the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. We will be doing our show there on Monday, and we'll be there opening night. The Chiefs this year will go second. The Chiefs, I believe, a couple years ago, did they go first or second? I guess maybe the road team goes second on opening night. I can't remember how it all works every single year. It just runs together with the opening night thing.
Yeah,
But,
I think the Chiefs went first last year and the Niners went second.
okay, and so the Chiefs went second then a couple of years ago, and Philly went first. Maybe I don't know. I don't remember. It was 2 years. You know how many playoff games they've won since then?
It's crazy,
it's just
man.
like another Super Bowl.
So against the Niners, they had that kind of Kittle and Kelsey almost trash talk off. They tried doing a little bit with Brock Purdy and Patrick, but
Yeah.
it was more or less because Kittle and Kelsey, they're boys. They have fun. They're great personalities.
Hey, George.
And it was actually a lot of.
Sorry.
It was a lot of. That was so good.
Hey, George. Oh, man. I'm glad he was paying attention to Karlaftis and not the ball on the ground.
But I wonder who does it this year for the Eagles. Who's going to be the
Yeah, because the
WWE
yeah,
guy?
like Saquon and Kareem Hunt wouldn't be the draw of Kittle and
No.
Kelsey. If it was like
You might still be
if it was like
Kelsey.
if the Ravens were playing, then it'd be Derrick Henry and Saquon up there,
Sure.
being interviewed together about running backs, making a return, all that stuff. I mean, it'll be Patrick and Jalen Hurts will be up there.
They'll do their thing, and they'll both be very respectful.
Yeah, maybe Chris Jones and Jalen Carter up there together, like dominant defensive tackles, like because they typically try to
they
find
try
like
and find that
the same
positional-
positional thing that's there. Maybe McDuffie And like Slay
and Cooper DeJean.
I know you love him, man. I mean, you're gonna have to get off that horse.
I have it in my
right.
my draft guide that we did.
Okay, maybe McDuffie and Slay.
Yeah,
would be maybe they can interview Andy Reid, and he'd have to put on an Eagles hat and talk about his time with the Eagles and McNabb, and then put on a Chiefs hat and talk about his time of actually winning Super Bowls.
We just get Andy Reid out there. You put a cheesesteak on one side, you put barbecue on the other side, and
he has to pick. Like they have like the animals pick a winner, and they put like this. Ooh, which one did the animal go to? Oh, it went to the barbecue. All right, Chiefs are going to win. Take that cheesesteak, And then against the Bengals 2 years ago, it went to the barbecue. Against the Bengals 3 years ago, it went to the chili, and then immediately threw up. But
said,
still,
we're never doing that again.
Still went to the chili.
It went to the chili, and he goes, we're not even allowing that chili in the playoffs.
Yeah, not. After he chose the barbecue the next year. It's like, we're not even going to, we don't even need you to choose between this and anybody else. They're just not going to be in the playoffs. So, but yeah, I do think, and it's going to be one thing that I'll be talking about next week there at the Super Bowl, will be about what the coaching staff has done. Can we play... Let's play this one. Let's play Mina Kimes from yesterday. And this is her, and I brought this up with Cynthia, and the way I described it was, are the Chiefs building the plane, offensively, Andy Reid and the coaching staff, are they building the plane during the season, or are they saving parts of the engine for the postseason that's been built? Like, how much are they constructing as the season goes along of putting the pieces to the plane together so when you get into the postseason, it's flying? And how much is it like, yeah, we're flying, but we're not even using our second engine yet. We'll get to the postseason, and then we'll turn that thing on. And then we'll put in the boosters, and then we'll put in NOS, because NOS helps planes too, right? Not just cars. I don't know how it works. But here's Mina Kimes weighing in on the Chiefs as the season progresses.
Their ability to use the regular season to self-scout and hone their offense in preparation for the playoffs. Specifically, when the Bills played a disproportionate amount of man coverage, which I think they did with the intention of Travis Kelce, they turned to Xavier Worthy, who has become their primary weapon against man coverage. 5 catches on 5 targets for 75 yards and a touchdown versus man. And what you saw in this game is something you really saw in the second half of the season, which is the way they use stacks, bunches, motions to get him matchups and leverage against man coverage.
5 targets, 5 catches, 75 yards, and a touchdown against man coverage. And that was a big conversation last week, right? The Bills played a lot of man-to-man in Week 11, and they limited Travis Kelce. Are they going to do that again? And if they do that, Hollywood Brown was a key to what can he do in this game because of breaking the man-to-man for the Bills. Christian Benford, whether he played or not. We were talking about last week. Sterling, you were pretty correct in your assessment of and we've seen it before, but yeah, these concussions seem to be easier to pass in the postseason. And that was unfortunate for Christian Benford. And quite frankly, as much as I respect the Bills players, I feel like the NFL should do a little bit of investigating of what happened there on Friday as to how Christian Benford missed practice with a personal reason while in the concussion protocol and would be listed as limited but missed the practice. And then he's cleared from concussion protocol. And then the first hit, he's got to be carted off. Like, there is zero chance that man was fully recovered from his concussion heading into the game against the Chiefs to suffer that badly on that hit, which was not benign, but by football standards, it wasn't exactly, wow, this guy just got knocked unconscious. This guy got picked up and thrown. Tua, when he got slammed to the ground and the side of his head hit the ground, you're like, yeah, that's awful. That is scary. This one was like, okay, they made contact, but it didn't seem as bad. But as soon as he was woozy and sort of, barely able to walk, you're like, how is he playing in this? How is he playing? So, yeah, I'd like there to be an investigation. Maybe the investigation comes back and it was all – I'm not asking for an investigation so that they find something wrong.
Sure.
I hope they find nothing wrong and it's just an unfortunate situation that happens. I would hope that would be the case because the Chiefs are villainous and ain't nobody discussing that.
Yeah, is why I said it all week. It's not because I'm happy. Like it's horrendous.
You're
that
not
it
rooting. It's not like you're saying, "Oh, I'm rooting for him to miss the game," or I'm rooting for him to be cleared so that he can be concussed again, so I can be proven right.
No, my point was though, it feels like concussions in the playoffs. They sure say they clear up quicker. And again, maybe he wasn't showing symptoms, but the whole Friday situation heading into the game where he was finally cleared, like, it just doesn't seem, if it's an independent neurologist, it sure doesn't seem very independent in that regard.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a head concussion specialist. Shockingly, because I don't think they call it head concussion specialist. I don't think that's the real title.
That was the original term. They've changed it.
Neurologist, I think, is the correct terminology.
Whatever you want to call it.
But the point is, during the regular season, I don't believe he would have played. I don't think there would have even been a question. But in the postseason, I get it. You want to play. The player wants to play. He's going to do everything he can to try and prove that he's good to go. But sometimes you have to save him from himself. It sucks that it was such a great player, that he's a huge part of that team. But at some point, if you're the NFL and you say we are focusing and we care about player safety, that does not seem like player safety to me. Just because it's a game of a larger magnitude. I know there's gonna be people from the 70s and 80s who are screaming and saying, "Well, we did this or we played." I get it,
but I bet it's screaming the other way. Like, no, take care of yourself.
Yes,
screaming, no, take care of. We didn't know what we didn't know.
Yes,
you guys are going into this eyes wide open. You guys have all the information in front of you, all the historical looks at it. You know what the risks are. We didn't know. So we didn't know what we didn't know. Protect yourself, all right? Because there are important things after. The money that you're making now is so astronomically larger than what we made back in the day, and we're dealing with the repercussions of playing the game that we love. And almost to a man, you'd probably hear him say, "And we do it again." And I'd play it again knowing everything because that was my life. That was my love. And you probably hear the same thing from players today, only they're making generational wealth to where you play a couple of years, you've got a nice little nest egg that might be more than some people make in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Nice little nest egg to start with, and you can be thinking about, your post-career as well. But, yeah, I mean, it's there's so much information now, and I do think it also speaks to the importance of getting the bye week, and not just simply Christian Benford, but the importance of getting the bye week and also resting your players and not having to play Week 18, in that the Chiefs didn't have guys going out there, players of consequence, nothing against the players that play, but, you still have to have 53 men play, or at least 22 men play at some point in the game in Week 18, whether you're resting starters or not. But then the wild card game, it was a win. They'd already won. They moved on to the next round. And the Bills lost Rapp in the game that didn't play against the Chiefs. And Benford got concussed on the onside kick for the Ravens. And then misses, 3/4 of the game after leaving the game early in that one. And they couldn't overcome it because Kyer Elam, isn't good enough, and moving DeMar Hamlin around, like they were already playing with guys who are
which again goes to the depth
backups.
of Kansas City, which is why again, for all the talk of Najee Johnson, he ain't Kyer Elam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
right?
it's like the importance of, you didn't have to. The Houston Texans aren't slouches. Okay, they have a good defense. So it's not like, well, you only played the Houston Texans, that's why you didn't get injured. But you also didn't play a better team in the Ravens. You also didn't have to throw a bunch on. They didn't have to run the play against the Texans.
The Samaje Perine play.
That?
Or the Spags
Well, they
blitz.
did run the Samaje Perine play against the Texans. It was the one that wrapped it up. By the way, the Bills' defense should have been smarter to know that was the play they ran with guys running crossers and Perine going the other way and catching the ball. And
I guess you're right. They did basically run.
but also, like, they didn't have to run the one play they ran twice that they scored 2 touchdowns on. The handoff to Kareem Hunt to the left, and then Mahomes kept it because the defensive end crashed down, and the linebackers also flowed right. They flowed right with the guard tackle pulling, and that's why it was so wide open for Mahomes. Mahomes read both. That's also the part that, Andy Reid, designing the plays, all of that, what it comes down to, great. But you also have to have the player go and execute. You have to have the player make the right read. O'Connell against the Lions went for it on 4th down a number of times in goal-to-go situations, and twice had the play called correctly and had a player wide open on the first read, and Sam Darnold couldn't throw it. You got to have the guy to go and execute too. So you can come up with that play all you want. But if Patrick Mahomes on the first touchdown to Kareem Hunt keeps it, the linebackers on the second level are flowing with the tight ends to the right. If he kept it, it's a minimal gain.
Yeah.
Instead, he sees the defensive end stay with the tight ends going to the right. He sees the linebackers not flowing with the pulling guard and tackle, and he gives it to Kareem Hunt. Wide open hole because they were able to set the edge over there because they got to that area before the linebackers got there because they were following the flow of the tight ends. The next time in the fourth quarter, that was the first touchdown of the game for the Chiefs. That happened with 8:56 to go in the first quarter. So 6 minutes of football had been played. They run that one. And then 50 minutes of football had been played. They run the play again. And Mahomes reads the defensive end crashing down and keeps it. And those linebackers flowed with the guard tackle and left the tight ends alone because, well, this is what they scored the touchdown on. They're going to do it again. And they guessed wrong twice. And Mahomes read it right twice. And it's like, wow, you had a wide open hole for Kareem Hunt and a wide open hole for Patrick Mahomes because you have to have the guy read it and execute it correctly. And Mahomes did that correctly. And they fooled the Bills twice. If Mahomes did the exact opposite twice, they don't score on either of those.
Well, I on that specific play, I have to give so much credit to Juwan Taylor. I keep doing it.
Trey. Juwan and Trey, they both pulled and they both made good blocks.
Well, I keep saying this because I've always been critical on Juwan Taylor because of the contract. I don't think he... Again, I always liken it to Frank Clark, where it's like the regular season, you look at the contract, you're like, brutal, not worth it. Then the postseason comes around, and they become different players, and you see why the Chiefs value them so highly. Because Juwan Taylor in the playoffs has been outstanding both years, right? I do think PFF, again, I know my thoughts on PFF. When it helps my case, I love it. When it hurts my case, I think they're dumb. Well, I think they're wrong here.
Makes sense, yeah.
I think Juwan Taylor's had a really good game against Buffalo, even if the PFF grades don't represent it. I think he was really good in the run game as well. That particular play on that first touchdown, if you roll that back and you want to see just a right tackle who is extremely athletic make an incredible block to open up a hole, it was perfect in my opinion. So huge hat tip to Juwan. I like to give credit where credit's due. A guy who's been picked on by a lot of Chiefs Kingdom and media, and a lot of times rightfully so, but postseason rolls around, that man is a different guy.
Yep. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. I do want to talk a little bit about this Chiefs dynasty, what it would mean, where they would be. I think everybody can agree. I do think everyone can agree that if the Chiefs win 10 days from now, 11 days from now, whatever it is, this would be the greatest 7-year stretch, 6-year stretch in the history of the NFL, bar none. It would be a decent gap between the Chiefs three-peating, winning 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, going to 7 straight AFC championship games, and the only time they didn't make a Super Bowl, they lost in overtime twice in the conference championship game. That 7-year stretch with a three-peat and 4 Super Bowl championships and 5 Super Bowl appearances in 7 years, but also 6 years, it would be the best. But I also want to look at some of the others and then connect it to what the annoyance is with me and looking and kind of putting my thoughts together last night as to why I was so pissed last week and why last Sunday morning bothered me the way that it did, and why the last 2 days, especially Monday, that I was battling as much as I was online with people in the ref conversation and thinking about it last night as to, finally just saying I'm not responding to anybody. I'd responded a lot. Like I think there's 7,000 replies, I think maybe, that I had. I'm not sure.
Seems low.
Well done. But what I was thinking last night as to why it bugged me. And I think I came to a reasonable analysis, answer of somewhat of self-aware. I think. You guys can be the judge, but we'll do that as well. We'll take a timeout, come back. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. I'm glad we did the look at the quarterbacks in the regular season and the postseason and seeing what they improve on, because it kind of led into what we saw on Sunday with the running game from Patrick Mahomes. And interesting that asking Cynthia what some of the takeaways are from that game, and the first thing she said was Patrick Mahomes and running in the playoffs, and we went through that and saw Patrick Mahomes improving his running the football and how often he runs the football in the playoffs. But also it's like Josh Allen improves his yards rushing per game in the playoffs by 20. But the Chiefs held him to his, what did he get, 39 yards?
Yeah.
He averages 38 yards during the regular season per game. They held him to 39. He averages 56 yards in his career in the playoffs. The Chiefs held him to 39. Patrick Mahomes averages 29 in the playoffs, and he picked up 45 without the kneel downs.
Sure.
When he averages 29 and outgained Josh Allen on the ground, which is just absurd to think of before the game would have started.
I've said for a while, in today's NFL landscape, with how good offenses are and how rules are almost set in their favor, you cannot take away every single thing a team does. There's no more 85 Bears. Right, even the Ravens of the 2000s, I think those defenses are a little bit of a thing of the past to an extent, because of, again, rules and offense and how it's set up for offense. So I think what you have to do in today's NFL landscape is take away one thing, and the Chiefs took away Josh Allen's legs. I think they were almost content. Content might not be the correct terminology, but they said, you're not going to just run James Cook 20 plus times. You're not going to do it. We dare you to.
Maybe they should have.
No, they should have. but they gambled and said, we're going to stop Josh. We can't stop both. You can't take away all three aspects of the Bills' offense. Josh Allen's arm, James Cook on the ground, and Josh Allen with his legs. They took away Josh Allen with his legs. Again, I think Spags he made the choice. He rolled the dice and said, hey, we just don't believe you're going to keep running the football with James Cook. They did it for a drive or two, and they were super successful. But what did they do? They got antsy. They got away from James Cook on the ground. It was like the Ravens last year running the football. They just said, you know what? No, we're going away from it. Spagnuolo took away one of, if not the best aspect of the Bills' offense was his Josh Allen's legs, and the Bills panicked.
Yeah, I mean it's I don't understand. Like I know that when people look at and say, well, why didn't they run James Cook more? Why didn't they run James Cook more? I understand the frustrations because of them essentially running the ball right down the throat of the Chiefs to come out to start their first possession of the third quarter. But it's like they did it the second go around. Let's see, they James Cook gained 4 yards, but then there was the Amenahu illegal hands to the top of the jersey. Illegal hands to the face. James Cook then gained 9 yards. Ray Davis lost a yard and fumbled. Recovered his own fumble, by the way, which set up 3rd and 1, and Josh Allen did the quarterback sneak for no gain, which set up 4th and 1. He got it. I think he got it. He should have got it. Nobody complaining about that one because 4th and 1, Josh Allen up the middle for 2 yards, reaches over, fumbles, recovers his own fumble. 2 out of 3 plays, the Buffalo Bills fumbled and recovered both times. Yeah. 2 times in 3 plays. And then James Cook picked up only 2 yards. 2nd and 8, Shakir for 5 yards. Dalton Kincaid for 2 yards. Josh Allen stopped. And then the Chiefs go down and score a touchdown, and they take the 7-point lead. They come back out. James Cook with 9 yards. James Cook for 23 yards. James Cook for 2 yards. Ty Johnson, no gain. Hollins, 32 yards, that deep one down the field to put him into 1st and goal at the 4. And then ultimately that 4th down and 4 touchdown to Curtis Samuel on that yet another 7-point play. It was an absolute 7-point because they did kick the extra point there. So it turned out to be a 7-point play. It was a 6-point play with James Cook's 4th down run. Yeah. So they got into the second half of them running James Cook, and they scored 2 touchdowns on drives in which they were running him a lot. They set up a 4th and 1 because the Chiefs were bowing up and stopping the run on that particular drive for the Bills. Even down by 7, though, they continued to run the football until they had to pass it on 3rd down and 8. The question I would have, though, is when you get the ball back with 3 minutes and 33 seconds left, and the Chiefs are going for a three-peat, 3 minutes and 33 seconds left at the Buffalo 30. A lot of threes there.
Yeah, a lot of threes.
Why did Ty Johnson run the ball and lose a yard? That would be, if anybody's complaining about they didn't stick with the run game. Well, I mean, we heard that commentary after the Ravens game last year. Well, they didn't stick to the run game. Did you watch the second half? Because Justin Reed and the Chiefs' defense was stuffing Gus Edwards in the run game.
They had a good run. I'm trying to think it was before the 2-minute warning, after the 2-minute warning. No,
Allen scrambled for 13 yards.
Yeah,
that was
about his time. No, they had that.
It was 2nd down and 11, and he picked up the 1st down with his legs.
I'll pull it up. They had that 3rd down, right, where they ran the football late in the game. And then on 1st down, they ran it again, and that was the question mark I had in that game decision-making. Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one that was. Because the only 1st down they picked up on that last drive for them was the Josh Allen 13-yard scramble. Maybe. 13 of the 17 yards they gained was on that scramble on 2nd down and 11 for Josh Allen. Because then he went incomplete, Cooper for 5, incomplete.
It may have been the second to last drive I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll pull it up. I'll find one. I'm fine because either way, it doesn't matter. I just think there was some questionable play calling from Joe Brady and Sean McDermott in this game.
Well, I would say the questionable play calling would be 3rd and 3 from the 43. James Cook had been, doing pretty good. Maybe that's an opportunity to hand it off to James Cook. Or 4th and 1 from the 41. Maybe that's an opportunity to give it to James Cook. I mean, they had been getting the quarterback sneak all year long, which is what a lot of this commentary misses, is that, it was an obvious spot. Well, you're dumb. If you think he obviously got the 1st down, and if you think it was an easy call, well, then you're dumb. Then you are watching it. The funny part is you're watching it through Chiefs derangement syndrome glasses. And you're going to tell me that I'm the biased one by saying, I don't know if he got it. He may have got it. In fact, on Twitter, in live time, I said, I think he got it, but I'm not sure you can overturn it on the replay. I don't know. And that was without watching it 1,000 times since then on every national show and all over Twitter since then. That one play constantly. And all they're talking about is where the ball was. And you know what they're not discussing? Are the Chiefs that were pushing back the offensive line and stopping Josh Allen in his tracks and wrapping Josh Allen up. He couldn't reach the football over. You know why? Because they had him wrapped up and they were pushing him back the other way. That's why it was even close at all, is because of the Chiefs doing what they did. There's no credit to the Chiefs.
No, none.
There's no credit for keeping it even to the point that where you left it in the hands, the Bills did, left it in the hands of the judgment of an official that is running 20-something yards away to run down the field to look at a scrum of people to say, I know exactly where the ball got to. That's your fault for doing that. The Chiefs had 4th and 1, and you know what they did? They picked up 5 yards.
Yeah, and
they didn't barely get it. They didn't leave it in the hands of the officials. You did what you had been doing, and that's why Timo Risk at Pro Football Focus was a great point when he said, you know, when you quarterback sneak, you understand and you take on, and you should accept taking on the inherent risk of a spot by an official that may not be able to actually see where he got in this scrum. You understand that. So it is up to you to make it definitive and not leave it to question as to whether or not he picked up the first down. And the fact that Josh Allen had already been stopped 2 times before, the 2-point conversion, the 3rd down and 1 quarterback sneak, which then resulted in Josh Allen saying, to pick up this sneak, I have to jump and reach the ball over and risk losing it. He did, but he recovered it. They had been doing the quarterback sneak a certain way and not getting it, so he had to change it to then say, you know what, now we're going to pick it up. You know why we're going to pick it up? Because we're going to go fast. Yeah. We're going to go fast and pick it up. Well, you also had a guard that false started on that play. That wasn't called. If we really want to get into the minutia and the inches here and the inches there and the seconds, all of that stuff. No, I'm saying if we really want to get into it, that happened as well. But people aren't discussing that. And they're not discussing the Chiefs' defense making the play and getting the stop and what it took from that front, from that defense, linebackers, to stop that offensive line from picking up from obviously picking up a half yard. Yeah. From maybe potentially picking up a half yard. Yeah. And if he did, he picked up only a half yard by an inch or two. But how many times did the Buffalo Bills just got up there and then Josh Allen's 3 yards past the line to gain and laying on the ground? Like we see that all the time. They did it all year. And the Chiefs defense gets left out in the ether of the conversation because so much of the did he make it in the spot has taken up the oxygen in the room.
And that's why it's so frustrating, because it's no longer talking football. You're talking refs. There's no longer talking about what this Chiefs defense did, as you're alluding to, or even some of the great plays that Josh Allen made. We're not talking about Josh Allen's phenomenal throw to Mac Hollins. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about the ability on 4th and 4 to find Curtis Samuel in the back of the end zone.
We're not talking about James Cook amazing individual effort run to score the touchdown.
And I think even if you're a Bills player, you're semi-frustrated too, because I haven't seen hardly any Bills. I don't think I've seen a single Bills player really come out and be like, refs.
Not a one.
No,
not even. I haven't really seen it. I haven't seen anybody even alluding to it to the degree to where it's like, oh, it's us versus everybody. Well, you knew when you came in here. Yeah. Like none of that.
But it's frustrating because it's taken away from what was such a great game, a phenomenal game.
You know what? And we'll take a break on this. And again, at 11 or at noon, I want to get into a little bit deeper of this as to thinking last night as to why it was bothering me so much last week and then on Monday, and less so yesterday. But it'll bother me in the Super Bowl as well. But you think about this. You look back to the last 2 games the Chiefs have played in the playoffs, Texans and Bills. And those games that come down to whether it's a possession here, a possession there, if you want to, discuss how much of the refs played a role with the Houston Texans, if you want to do that stupid stuff that's there. The Houston Texans lost by 9 points. They were losing by 11. The only reason they lost by 9 is because the Chiefs took a safety. They were losing by double digits, okay? Two-score game for them to even tie it. And after the game is over, they spend their time talking about the refs. The Buffalo Bills have been in this position 3 times against the Chiefs, and they have lost. And they have lost dramatic games. 13 seconds, they should have won by a field goal. You make a really strong argument to be able to say they should have won by a field goal. Okay, fine. The Chiefs should have won by 4. I can make that argument too. Yeah. Chiefs led for like 35 minutes of that game. I think the Bills led for like 7 minutes of that game. It was tied for a good portion, but everybody's like, oh, the Bills should have won that game. Really? Go back and watch the actual game. Chiefs controlled that game. Yes, the final 4 minutes were unbelievable. And yes, with 13 seconds left, Josh Allen threw the touchdown. And yes, the drive before that, Josh Allen had a 17-play drive that gave him the lead. And then the Chiefs went right back with Tyreek Hill's 60-plus yard touchdown to answer him. It's like, wow, you just went 17 plays. And then the Bills went down the field again and hit Gabe Davis with 13 seconds left. Okay, that's fine. Then they lose by 3 last year at home, and they lose by 3 this year. They would have every right to say, well, it's this or that. We're getting screwed here. We're not getting. Instead, they said, you know what? To be the champs, you got to beat the champs, and they're the standard. And we haven't got it done. And the Houston Texans blame the refs
by 11.
And you know what that says, Sterling? Dylan, you know what that says?
There's Charmin Ultra Soft?
No, it says the Texans ain't anywhere near winning a Super Bowl because the Bills are the ones that are saying it's on us to improve. They're the team we have to beat. We're not doing it. And the team that lost by 2 scores said it's the ref's fault. wearing all his Philly stuff today, but that's odd. Whatever. No. Love Frank Bull. 913-912-4810 is the text line. Haven't got to the text today, so I apologize about that. And then
why you hate the people?
I love the people. I love the trick letter kids. I love the people. We will. I do want to get into breaking down the different dynasties. One thing that I want to put together, I don't know, maybe I'll have Curtis do this. I'm not going to have Curtis do this, but I may work on it tonight. I don't know. I'll be working on Sad Fans too, but I want to see how many actual players in this 7-year run for the Chiefs, or even 6 years, 5 Super Bowls in 6 years, maybe going back to 2019, but we can take it to 2018 if we're talking about the dynastic run, of how many different players participated in a postseason game along the way.
Oh, man.
For the Chiefs. Because you have special teams, because you got to build a 53-man roster. And the reason I'm sort of curious about it,
I bet it's 300, because 350 plus.
Gerard Butler was there? Nice.
No, because if you had 350, then you have that's 50, and then you had 3 for 7 years, right? That's 21. So 371 would be the max. That'd be the max amount of players. It's got to be over 300 because.
Yeah, the reason I'm curious is like when we talk about dynasties, because I want to compare, because it was a different time, right? I want to compare it to like how many Pittsburgh Steelers played in those 8 straight division trips, 6 conference championships, the 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. Like how many different Steelers played in that, in the turnover of what it takes now, versus how many different Chiefs players played in a playoff game in this 6-year run of playing in 5 Super Bowls and maybe winning 4.
I'll say 250 because I realized that was bad math. Because Patrick would have been 7 of those numbers. Chris Jones.
Yeah, but but he counts as 1 though. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
that would have been 7.
In my math of the maximum amount was 300 and what did I say? 371
Well, that would be the maximum
players.
amount if there was a changeover every single
That's
year.
my point. That's my point. So I bet it's got to be over 200, close to 250, which is a ton of players.
Yeah, I know that's a lot of work. Maybe I do want somebody else to do this. Oh man,
Curtis.
No, that'll be fun.
Take it to your accountant.
No, it'll be fun. That's I'm weird like that. That actually sounds fun to do. We'll talk about my annoyance last week and Monday next. practices. Those are being broadcast on ESPN platforms. The actual practices for the first time, I think, in a decade. ESPN has the Senior Bowl practices.
Nice.
I believe the actual games on the NFL Network, but
some Mizzou guys down there.
That's right. Are there Mizzou graduates down there covering the Senior Bowl? I was joking. No, they're Mizzou play. No, I was being a jokester.
Smart ass.
I was being a smarty jokester, saying, "What about Nick Bolton? A pretty badass player, right? That guy bowed his back up there in doing that." But so we'll talk with Matt Verderam. He's got a really cool piece out there from Sports Illustrated, ranking 1 through 50 the most memorable NFL games of the Super Bowl era. And he did one last year. I'll have to figure out what it is if I remember. Hopefully to do it before I have Matt on.
He did one too where he went to 12 different training camps.
Yeah,
and that was pretty
he's done
cool.
That one, yeah,
that was always a cool one.
Yeah, I think he maybe one of the things that he talked about in the SI article was the quote from Orlando Brown that he actually got at Bengals camp. So it's like, Orlando Brown's there. I'm just picturing Orlando Brown wearing all his Bengals gear, sitting down in the locker room with Matt Verderam, talking about the Chiefs and his time with the Chiefs and what it was like. And Orlando Brown's one of the quotes on the 13-second game.
Wow.
And just saying, like, well, it's that culture, right? There was never a question we were going to make the plays when it happened. He also was a quote on the Eagles Super Bowl one, too. He used one of the quotes from Orlando Brown.
He's a very personable guy.
Yeah.
Orlando Brown Jr., whatever your thoughts are on him as a player here in KC, he is a very personable, and he will have a long career post-football doing whatever he wants to do because he's a fun guy.
I want to play this clip. Clip number 3 here today. It's Julian Edelman, and he is on with Rich Eisen. And they start with sort of the Chiefs and Patriots comparison of not getting a lot of credit and people discrediting them by pointing at outside factors and like the refs narrative. So here's that. It's about 2 minutes long or so with Julian Edelman talking about his time with the Patriots, what he sees from the Chiefs, and the absurd narrative.
It's apparent when you're on top, everyone wants to try to bring you down. It's a bunch of baloney that the league is helping the Kansas City Chiefs. If you got a problem with it, go beat them. Okay, the refs aren't involved in when you throw interceptions, when you fumble the ball, when you jump off sides, when you don't convert third down or fourth down, or third and fourth down for short 4 times. They can't control that. Like, if you want to beat them, go beat them. Don't talk about it. Be about it. I'm so sick and tired of hearing people say that about the Chiefs.
Did you? And you did hear that, though.
We don't know. He's the face of the league. Okay? If it's close and you have to think about it, just stop. Okay? You got to do business as business is being done with the referees. We all have scouting reports on each ref crew on how they like to throw the game. You learn about it during that first part of that game. If they're calling it tight, you tighten back. If they're not, you just hope that they're consistent throughout the whole thing, which they usually are. And yes, they miss calls and they do these things, and there's bad calls here and there, but there's a handful of roughing the passers for guys that don't even have a resume that you looked at this year that got the call. If it's close, leave it alone. Yeah, they'll probably have to address that sideline awareness stuff, but these whole graphics about they get the call and they don't get the call. They don't give the call to them because they're coached better. They're situationally tight. You watch them on third down. You watch them in the red area. A lot of these games, when you get to this time of the year, they're not won by the team that makes the most plays. Yeah, that's part of it. It's usually it's always the team that makes the least amount of mistakes, and that's what they do. They play mistake-free, they play situationally tight, and they lull you to sleep, and then they beat you when they need to. And that's stuff that we used to do. So, it's been fun to watch them because, hey, that's how football is supposed to look. A lot of these teams that are sloppy, penalties, turnovers, abandoning their run game, when things get tough, trying to go for 2-point conversions in the second quarter, like you're beat. That's you. That ain't them. That's you.
a number of things there from Julian Edelman. Maybe,
really good.
Maybe they're just coached better. Maybe they just execute better when it comes to the postseason, which is why I pointed out the turnovers stat that nobody seemed to catch on to. It was all about the facts that Adam Schefter was putting out, just reporting the facts. That's all he was doing. But I was thinking about it last night, and why, last week was so frustrating, and then, certainly since then. And one of the things that I landed on is the historical nature and conversation around what we've been watching with the Chiefs and Bills. Last week, instead of talking about the Texans and the refs and diminishing what the Chiefs have done and putting out these facts constantly about the Chiefs, what we didn't do or had was a full week buildup to what was going to be, or we didn't know at the time, could have been an all-time classic game. Chiefs, Bills, Patrick Mahomes legacy, Josh Allen legacy, part 4. That could have been the whole week building up to what does this mean for Josh Allen? Three-peat for Patrick Mahomes on the line. That could have been what are we getting with the classic? The takeaway should have been what a classic game it was. Heck, if Matt Verderam's voting tomorrow, this game might make it into his top 50, all-time most memorable football games. Like this string of rivalry with Mahomes and Allen is being overshadowed because of people are talking about a couple of inches on a spot. They're not talking about 5 plays later the Chiefs scored a touchdown. It took 5 plays after that 4th down stop for the Chiefs to score a touchdown. That's not the refs. That's the Bills defense. And I guess it bothered me so much because, over the weekend, you've got, Adam Schefter that's, tweeting about roughing the passer calls and acting like he's just, quote, presenting the numbers, and that's all he's doing. And it's a play to diminish the greatness. There's no getting around it. It's a play to diminish what the Chiefs are doing because they make your franchise look bad because your franchise can't do that. You had to deal with the Patriots. And then it's a direct handoff. Like we're not talking about how truly great the Chiefs dynasty is. We're not talking about that we went from Brady to immediately handing the baton to Mahomes. How many dynasties have we ever seen go from one to the very next one? The next year, they won the Super Bowl in 18 to cap off their dynasty. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl in 19 to start their Super Bowl dynastic run. We haven't seen that. Maybe the 49ers to the Cowboys, maybe.
Sure.
But
that's it.
But yeah, but that even that last Super Bowl was
and even in other sports.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think
it was 89 was the last Niners Super Bowl, and then the first Cowboys was 92. So there was a 3-year gap between Montana's last Super Bowl.
Well, you had Steve Young's first one, though. So you had Steve Young's first one when he took the only one, when he took the monkey off his 94. Back, right?
But when were other sports? I mean, it wasn't directly Bulls to Lakers.
Yeah,
that wasn't direct.
But this could be the conversation that we could be having, right? And we don't get the conversation about that. I mean, it's and my frustration. I was thinking about this last night. The frustration is it's not just, Dan 7563 football guy Bills are the best on Twitter X. Like it's not just him. It's the people that are supposed to be the ones.
Dan Orlovsky.
But I mean, honestly, it's the people that are supposed to be the ones that are the most experienced in the conversation, and they're taking their cues from Jeff Football Rock 735, and that are saying it's rigged and the Chiefs get all the calls. And again, you get Adam Schefter that comes out and says, I'm just bringing the facts to the table. Like, you're just bringing the facts to the table is all you're doing, right? That's all you're doing. You're not doing anything else. Because
engagement forming.
Yeah, exactly. Just bringing the facts to the table, you wouldn't need to say, hey, there's relief on the way for people that think Patrick Mahomes gets all the calls. There's relief on the way. Don't worry. Oh, you're just presenting that the NFL is going to look at roughing the passer and unnecessary roughness calls in the offseason. You're just presenting that as a fact.
Didn't use a guy who got more roughing the passer calls than Josh Allen?
You didn't use Josh Allen.
Oh,
no,
weird.
You capitalized on the engagement farming led by Stewie752 Bills Rock Ravens Suck. Like, that's...
Don't use Stewie. It's too close to Stu, which is too close
sorry
to
about
Sterling.
that, Brian. Brian, Adam. Like, you're using that guy to tell you how to lead the conversation. instead of leading the conversation of letting people know what the real story is here. But you're falling into it because you get 31 other fan bases to wrap their arm around you and go, see, I love you. I love you. Because if you say the opposite, you get one fan base that says, I love you, and 31 other fan bases that tell you, you suck. You're dumb. You're an idiot. Nobody wants to be told you suck, you're dumb, you're an idiot. And so you've got these people that are supposed to be the ones that have been there, done that, presenting these things as the one that are falling into the, I don't know, man, I'm starting to think there's probably some sort of a conspiracy that goes along with that. I'm starting to think there's some sort of an issue here with what's taking place with the Chiefs and all of these officials and all of these calls that are going on. Like, you have how many days leading up to Allen versus Mahomes 4? Allen versus Mahomes in the playoffs yet again, and a classic. And we're talking about anything but, what that was. I want to play this clip from Pat McAfee yesterday with Adam Schefter. Because, again, he's got 9 million followers. All right, it's not Johnny 17 that has, 20 followers. That's saying everybody knows that the Chiefs get it. The only people that think the Chiefs aren't getting the favorable calls are the ones in Kansas City. Everybody outside thinks they are. Everybody. Well, go look up the term everybody and learn what that means and then come back and talk to me. But here's Pat McAfee, Adam Schefter. This was the end of their conversation with Pat, telling Adam to be safe out there on the Twitter world with people coming at him. Here's it's about 30 seconds, but at least Pat McAfee brought up what exactly is going on.
Pat, we just try to stick to the facts. That's it. Zero intention, zero agenda. That's it.
Yeah, but what facts do you present, what facts do you withhold are always, that's the decision. That's journalism, baby. That's journalism. Mm-hmm. We appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Adam Schefter.
Yeah.
I always do appreciate that. We're just presenting facts.
That's it.
Yeah, which ones, though?
A lot of facts.
Which ones are you withholding? Because it seems like you're potentially building a narrative with the facts that you're choosing. What about the ones that maybe combat? Those get suppressed? We're telling the truth. Which truth, though?
What's the angle?
Yeah, what's the angle? Hashtag journalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hashtag journalistic standards.
Nobody talked about, again, turnovers. Nobody discussed the fact that the Chiefs cut their turnovers in half. Is that the refs? No, it's not. And I think we're going to get the conversation at the Super Bowl next week. And God, I hope somebody sits down with me and wants to go down this route. Because I promise you, they are not nearly prepared to have the discussion with me as they think they are. Because the dumbass narrative talking point shtick, parroting, following the crowd at chow time, echo chamber, ain't going to fly. All right? Because if they want to bring up a point, I got 5 to counter. So I hope somebody sits down and offers that next week. But the problem, and what I love about McAfee saying that there is, okay, what stats? Because you brought up, hey, look at all these roughing the passer stats. Okay, but you didn't present what those plays looked like. You didn't present the plays because you're saying the Chiefs have been called for 0 roughing the passers. You know what? George Karlaftis got called for roughing the passer on that 4th and 5. Oh, wait, no, he didn't. Because he hit Allen in the chest, and as soon as Allen started falling, he let go. Because he's coached better than Will Anderson. He's coached better than Tota. He's coached better than those guys. He's smarter than they are. That's what the Chiefs are. Sorry, Texans, the Chiefs are smarter than you. You actually went into the game and said, we got to face the refs too, and went high. We got to face the refs too. And Mahomes slid, and Toto ducked his head to hit him helmet to helmet. And he made contact helmet to helmet. And the other dude throws a forearm shiver into the helmet of Patrick Mahomes. The officials have already come out and said that would be upheld. Adam Schefter didn't present that fact, right? We're just presenting facts. These are the roughing the passers. Oh, and they're going to be reviewed. But the NFL has already said those would be upheld. I don't care that Kevin Yoke, whatever his name is, that immediately agreed with Troy Aikman. Oh, that's a bad call. You just can't call that there. I don't care that Gene Steratore thought it was a first down. I don't care about those immediate reactions from the officials there. Oftentimes they agree. Sometimes they don't. It doesn't mean they're right. But we view that as if you disagree with the official, the commentator, the official analyst, if you disagree with him, well, he's just saying whatever the refs are going to do. If you agree with him, well, see, he said that was the right call. Oh, see, he said that was the wrong call. It just depends on what call works in your favor, whether or not the official is just staying with the call or he's brave enough to say that wasn't the right call. It just depends on what you're doing. And I can present facts, too, if I want to just present facts to Adam Schefter. Because I can present facts and say, hey, ESPN put out a memo and said, any information that a reporter sought the approval of editing on his report from a team executive in Washington that they're writing a story about during a lockout, we're going to immediately let go. The ESPN and Disney, they look into any reporter that has a story that results in a settlement of a lawsuit directly from their reporting. Hey, I heard ESPN and Disney, they're looking into a memo that was sent out that if you report Deshaun Watson as being innocent because a grand jury brought back a no true bill, then they're probably going to fire that guy. I also heard about a memo that's going on at ESPN. If you take an agent's word for what his client did or didn't do, like tweeting a player as a victim of domestic violence attack 2 hours before it's released, there's a civil lawsuit against said player, accompanied with text messages that player apologized for what he did and the alleged victim talking about how messed up her face is, she can't see her family for Thanksgiving, then that reporter will be let go. Now, if I offered those as just simply that and then said, oh, by the way, those all were Adam Schefter, I'm just presenting facts of what Adam Schefter has done in his reporting in his career. I don't have a narrative. I'm just presenting the facts. All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB on this Wednesday. We'll be down in New Orleans next week. Sterling and I, along with Todd Lee, will be down there. Matt Verderam, Sports Illustrated, covering the NFL and getting ready for Super Bowl 59. Also getting ready for the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama. Matt, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you, Jason?
I am doing just fine. You know, I think it was last year maybe that you had was it maybe 1 through 50 of like all the different Super Bowls? I can't remember what it was, but you had this ranking of all of these, or maybe it was all-time teams. I can't remember what it was, and I apologize about that. But it reminded me as I was reading through the last couple of days of releasing 1 through 26 this morning at Sports Illustrated and 26 through 50, 1 through 25 today, and 26 through 50 at Sports Illustrated with the greatest games in NFL history. And it just I don't know, it kind of gives me nightmares if I think about trying to even start that endeavor to come up with the 50 best games in NFL history. Why do you put yourself through that?
Because I love it in a weird way. Last year we did the 50 most influential teams in NFL history, and then it worked, went well, and the powers that be decided they want to do something similar. So this year we did the 50 most memorable games of the Super Bowl era, and it's in the magazine right now. It's 18 pages in the back of the magazine. It's part of the Sports Person of the Year issue. It is online right now, as you said. Went up today the last of the 2-part series, and online is the full version, where we have panelist quotes, and then we also have player quotes from every game, all 50. I talked to anybody you could think of for this: Bobby Bell, Joe Green, Joe Namath, Larry Zonka, Ty Law, Dick Vermeil. Wade Phillips, Dan Fouts, Randy Cross, Brent Jones. It goes on and on. Dave Robinson. It was not easy, but it was a pleasure. It probably took about 9 months, and it's about 27,000 words. I would encourage anybody to check it out. We had a 37-person blue ribbon panel. And it was a lot of work, but it was worth it. It was awesome.
One of the things that would scare me is, like, if I get through the whole thing, and I know you had so many different people on the panel, if I get through the whole thing and then the last, like, one commenter was like, well, what about this game? You're like, oh, bleep, I totally forgot about that game. It's just so, because you guys are doing regular season and postseason.
All of them. Any game in the Super Bowl era. It was funny because the way we did it, I listed out probably about 120 games.
Wow.
And then just said, okay, like, here's the 120 games or so that I've thought of that I think are the best games of the Super Bowl era. Look at the list. You've got a week. Get back to me. And we had a who's who in the panel. We had Amy Trask, we had Rich Eisen, we had Albert Breer, we had Chris Berman, Bill Polian, Louis Riddick, Dan Orlovsky. I mean, we had a million people. And we went through the whole process. We voted. And Chris Berman called me up. I was like, hey, man, what about the Steve Gleason, the Superdome game?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you're right. We should have had that on the list. I don't know if it would have made it, but we should have had it on the list. That was the only game that that nobody thought of in real time. And then afterwards, I was like, yeah, you're right. That was kind of like the one regret I have. Although I don't know if it would have made it, but it at least would have been a good conversation. But, it's amazing when you do it. You come up with these games that we're all voting on, and you're thinking like, okay, listen, there are certain games they're going to be on the list. And then there are games you go, yeah, like that Denver-Kansas City Monday night game in '94, like that's definitely going to make it. Then you start doing the voting, you're like, oh my God, I don't think it's going to get on the list. Like there's so many, you just don't realize how many all-time games there are till you do something like that. And you're like, wow, that game's 38. And you're like, yeah, well, what game would you put it ahead of? And it becomes very difficult.
Yeah, I noticed that there are 7 games for the Chiefs, and the one thing that stands out to me in those 7 games ranked 1 through 50 is that 5 of them are with Patrick Mahomes. That the Chiefs had 2 of them before Patrick Mahomes got to Kansas City, the Super Bowl 4, and then the Christmas Day game, the famous double overtime 27-24 loss. And I love that you wrote about it on that particular game, about the feeling around Kansas City and the organization about that being the best team And 3 missed field goals. Chiefs have been through that before, but a number of missed field goals and then losing that game and thinking, wow, that was maybe the last best shot. And as we found out, it was. But 5 of the 7 games on this for the Chiefs are all Patrick Mahomes, going from the first year as a starter to the most recent game he has played at the end of last year with the 49ers. That's what stood out to me is that, we've experienced 5 of this prestigious panel of thinking of all of these games that have ever been played in the Super Bowl era, that a 10th of them are with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback.
Yeah, it's funny. That wasn't lost on myself or the panel. And when you do this, I put together the panel. It's 37 people, and you try to have a balance of younger people, older people, men, women. You try to factor that in. You try to factor in so you don't have recency bias, and I really don't think we did. But I think when you look at the games they've had with Mahomes, they have just been a part of some unbelievable games. I mean, you're talking about the 13 seconds game.
Yeah.
Is on there, no question. Listen, it has to be. It's one of the great games of all time. And then you get into that Eagles Super Bowl a couple of years ago was a great game. The last Super Bowl was an overtime. Maybe it wasn't a great game in terms of the quality of play. The first half it was low scoring. It picked up. It goes to overtime. They have an iconic ending. You have a Monday night game that has 105 points. They've been in a lot of games. And by the way, there was another game. I think it was the AFC title game that they won against Cincinnati. That just missed. That was
really?
One of the 5 games that just missed. Yeah, I mean,
wow.
They have just been in a million games like that.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, the Chiefs with 5 of them with Patrick Mahomes, and then 1, and then Super Bowl 4, and then that Christmas Day game. Yeah, I would encourage Chiefs fans to go and check it out, because the panelist quote, the legend quote, you got Orlando Brown, you got Shamari Connor, you got Mitchell Schwartz weighing in on that. And you know what? I want to get into the game on Sunday against the Bills. And the segue that I'll have here getting into the game against the Bills for the Chiefs is DeAndre Hopkins has 1 catch for 11 yards and is as happy and elated as probably DeAndre Hopkins can get. I think that's the happy. Yeah. I think that's DeAndre Hopkins, vision or a look of a kid on Christmas Day. But you see him, didn't really play that big of a role in that. It was Xavier Worthy. That's the talk coming out of that for the Chiefs, at least. And the quote from Orlando Brown I thought was interesting in the Eagles Super Bowl when he was in church mode and he slid down at the 1-yard line and he walked up to Orlando Brown. He said, "Man, I could have scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl," but he didn't. He took the knee, did what he had to do because of the overall team. And that stuck out to me because, look, it was what he was supposed to do. The goal line's right there. History, keeping that football, scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but knows more important that they got the ring and won the game. And that just sort of embodies what this dynasty has been for all the different players that have come and gone that have played their part. It's more of a collective rather than, hey, I had 1 catch, 11 yards. I don't care. We're going to the Super Bowl.
Yes. It's well put, Jason. I think, it was funny when I got that call from Orlando Brown. I was actually at Bengals training camp. And I went up to him in the middle of the locker room and started talking to him about it. And you're thinking, okay, I don't know how much he's going to want to talk about his Chiefs days in the middle of the Bengals locker room. But, I know him a little bit, and I was like, I'm sure he'd give me a quote. I think he would have talked to me about that for an hour and a half. He was,
oh, wow.
First of all, for any fan out there, he could not be a nicer guy. Orlando Brown Jr. is one of the nicest people you'll ever come across. He just talked glowingly about just their culture and how they approach things, and Mahomes and his mindset and how it permeates the room. And to that point, to bring it to Sunday's game, I thought one of the most telling things of that whole night was when they complete the pass to Pirine. They're clearly going to win. They're getting ready to kneel down. And CBS initially, if I recall correctly, shows a shot of Josh Allen looking devastated on the sideline. And then they go to the Chiefs sideline, and Chris Jones is like inconsolable on the sideline. Like he was just crying his eyes out. And I thought to myself in that moment, here's a guy. He doesn't have to do another thing in the NFL. He has gotten 2 massive contracts, financially secure for life. He has won 3 Super Bowls. He's gone now. This is going to be his 5th, but already gone to 4. He is walking into Canton. Like this, he's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. If he's not, he's certainly going to get in, first couple ballots. And the guy is just beside himself, like he's a 40-year-old veteran who's been in the league for 20 years, who's never gotten to the Super Bowl. Like it just meant so much to him. And to me, as much as any other reason, their talent level, quarterback, the coaching staff, that's why they are who they are. Like the emotion that guy played. I'll be honest with you. My first thought was, wow, that's pretty powerful. It's a powerful image. My second thought was the Eagles really better button up their chin straps in the Super Bowl, because this team, to be that emotional about it, and I covered the divisional game. I mean, even after that game, there was a sense of like, okay, we got to win one more game, and then we're to the point we've been waiting to get to for years. I mean, I give them a lot of credit for to stay that focused and be that invested in things for years to get to this point. There's a reason they're the first team trying to three-peat in the Super Bowl.
Do you think, we know that Mahomes hears everything, but they've said all year, like, no, it's one game at a time, even through the playoffs. Like, nobody's talking three-peat. We can't be talking three-peat. They did it after the first Super Bowl of, hey, let's do it again. They did it after last year, hey, let's go for 3. And in that moment with Chris Jones, as emotional as he was, and NFL Films put that out, and I think you retweeted it. I retweeted it as well. It's a really powerful moment and then a Minihue going, I get to play in a Super Bowl. Like, I get to play because he, was devastated last year after tearing his ACL against the Ravens. And I do wonder, like, all of the backdrop of what this season was, that if there is an in real time moment of understanding where their place in history is going to be now by making that, where Chris Jones can get emotional of, like, we can think of Charles Haley and some of the greatest defensive linemen we've seen in Super Bowl history that just played in Super Bowl after Super Bowl. And Chris Jones gets put into that category of now playing in his 5th. If, like, in real time, like, we won back-to-back. We're the only team to now get back to the Super Bowl to try to win 3 in a row. This is something that nobody in the history has ever done before. If, like, in real time, that can wash over you for a little bit of getting an idea and a perspective there without having to, in 3 or 4 months I'll look back on it, because they knew what this season was about.
Oh, yeah. That to me, though, is what is so amazing about this. So I tweeted this last night, because I'm starting to do my prep work. I'm going to be in New Orleans for the Super Bowl for Sports Illustrated. I was looking at the Chiefs season, and I was trying to think about different things maybe I hadn't thought about. They're not including the Week 18 game, which of course they played nobody in. They are 23-1 in their last 24 games, and that includes 3 games against Buffalo, 2 games against the Niners, 2 games against the Ravens, 2 games against the Bengals, 3 games against the Chargers, 2 games against the Texans. Like, wow, you could put whoever you think the second best team in the league is, let's say Detroit or Buffalo, you could put that team against the Giants 24 times, and they're not going to go 23-1. The Chiefs, that 23-1 includes 6 playoff games in a Super Bowl. Like, it's not like they played, like the 24 games like they could handpick. It's like the easiest game. And 23-1 in that regard would be ridiculous. I think the thing that goes maybe not unnoticed, but a little unsaid, is just how incredibly focused you have to be to do that. Look, we could talk about, hey, some of these games are really close, and they're closer than they should be. That's fine. But to do that, to come out on the right side of that 23 out of 24 times, and the one game you lost, you were probably a stop on Josh Allen's runaway from winning that game. Like, that's right, yeah. It's not like they got blown out of it. You just look at them and say, this is a team unlike any team that we've ever seen, including New England. As great as New England was, New England, for all their successes, they never had a stretch like this, where you just, like, they win every game. And now they're in 3 straight Super Bowls, which New England did do once. They won 2 of them. If the Chiefs win this game next Sunday, they're the greatest team of all time. Mm-hmm. Like, there is no argument. I love the history of the NFL. Just, believe me, go look at that project on Sports Illustrated. Like, they are the greatest team in NFL history if they win in whatever it is, 10 days. There's nobody who can match 5 Super Bowls in 6 years. Nobody's ever done it. And winning 3 straight. Nobody's ever done it. It is staggering. And look, the Eagles are a really good team. It's not going to be easy, but the Chiefs are a favorite, and they probably should be. And they're going to be they're going to be a lot to handle on Super Sunday.
Matt Verderame is our guest from Sports Illustrated. He's down in Mobile getting ready for the Senior Bowl and has this awesome 1 through 50, the most memorable games in NFL Super Bowl history, 1 through 50. What's your takeaway, actual takeaway, not the Twitter nonsense of John Football Guy, Bills fan 782 of the game, and not the officials and all of that stuff. What's your actual takeaway from what we watched in a incredibly classic, I don't know, maybe a game that next year, if you put 1 through 50, this thing would have shown up in the top 50. But what's your actual takeaway from what we saw on Sunday night?
I actually thought about that while I was watching. I was like, this probably would have been on the list. My main takeaway from the game was that I thought the Chiefs showed why they're the gallant champion that they are. That they made the plays they had to make. They weren't perfect. They had a turnover early in the game. They blew an 11-point lead. They really allowed Buffalo to kind of take control of that game going into the fourth quarter with a third quarter that was not good. They had 3 and out. They took a sack to take them out of any kind of a field goal opportunity. But when they have to have it, they have it. And that's kind of been the story of them for years now, where, look, we could talk about whether or not Allen got the first down. I don't know if he did or didn't, but you know what? They made enough of a stand there that it was a judgment call, and they got the call. And then but then, to me, more importantly, is everybody gets so fixated on that. They then took the ball, went right down the field, and jammed it in the end zone. Got a 2-point conversion. Buffalo, to their credit, came back, tie it, and then the Chiefs do what they do, right? They get the lead, and Allen's got the ball on his racket. 4 minutes left, 3 timeouts, 2-minute warning, and they didn't even get to midfield. And I just think it's the details of it all. Like, Spags calls the perfect blitz. The Bills are not ready for that blitz. They're not ready for that call. They're not, there are certain things in that game. Allen on the first drive was completely unprepared. He's lucky he didn't have 2 interceptions on back-to-back plays. And you can say, well, yeah, it's the first drive. Great. The Chiefs' first drive was 9 plays, 90 yards, and a touchdown. It set the tone for that game, the preparedness, the little small details. Allen not sliding the line on that blitz. Like, you can say, well, that's a little thing, and it is a little thing. But little things are what the Chiefs have strived on for this entire dynasty, where they win those moments. They're not unprepared. They don't miss a sliding of the protection. They understand, hey, you know what, we're on the right hash. If we blitz this way, he's got nowhere to go. We can play zone. We can take out that orbit motion, which beat us a year ago on 4th down against Buffalo. They prepare and execute better than any team, at least since New England, maybe in my lifetime. And I think Buffalo at times executed and at times didn't. And if somebody is going to beat them, you have to execute perfect. If Philadelphia is going to beat them in a week and a half, Philadelphia is going to have to play a perfect game. They're going to have to be perfect. They're not going to win this game. If they play really well they're not going to win. They got to play perfect, and they got to hope the Chiefs make mistakes. And Buffalo, I thought, played well, but they didn't play well enough. And Kansas City, when they needed it, just made every single little play they needed to make to win.
That's part of my frustration with what the last week and a half has been since that Houston Texans game, of the commentary and the discussion that's been going on, and the narrative that has permeated throughout the entire season, but has really got to a fever pitch the last couple of weeks, is that what it does is it diminishes the Chiefs' play in the playoffs. To talk about the number of penalties, okay, well, and to not mention that their turnovers cut in half over the last 3 years, when people are talking about, they've been penalized this few times against this opponent, and look what they did in the regular season and how often they were penalized. Right. But explain the turnovers then. They've cut the turnovers in half in the postseason from what they did in the regular season. And it goes to exactly your point. The coaching, the margins, the execution that is taken up a notch, taken up a level, that gets diminished because they go, oh, referees, and they get away with everything that happens in a game. Or they're more prepared than the other team. Osiris Torrance said they had shown that look before, and they kept bringing it from the other side. That's why Josh Allen slid the protection to the left, is because they showed the same thing a number of times. And then they brought it from that side. And Torrance said it was like Spagnuolo was setting up that blitz the entire game for that one opportunity. And you know what? He probably was, Matt.
He was.
I mean,
he was.
Probably was doing that. I mean, that's the difference, and that's what's ignored and dismissed when we just talk referees, which is annoying.
Well, no. The conversation is nauseating, but yes, that is what he did. I mean, they spend the whole regular season setting up these 2 or 3 games. That's what they do. They do it all the time. They will show the same formation and the same personnel package 20 times in the regular season. And they are willing to get stuffed on a play during the regular season at times because your team scouts it, knows what they're going to do, so that when they get to the playoffs and some team goes, hey, we saw this, we know what you're going to do, got you, and then the Chiefs go, no, you don't actually, because we're going to run the opposite way out of this. And it's a 40-yard gain because nobody's on that side of the field. Like, there's a reason they do this stuff. I mean, the corn dog play, they sat on that motion. They didn't run that motion one time the whole season. And then just they're like, here you go, twice, boom, touchdown, game's over. Like, it's incredible that they have the ability to sit on stuff like that all year long. But that speaks to how great they are. I mean, they win these regular season games half the time. They're not even playing half the play ball.
Yeah.
But no, the conversation is nauseating. The bottom line is this has become a conversation for a few reasons. We don't have enough time to get into all of it. But I think part of it is people in our industry have just basically accepted the fact that if they become a clown show, they can monetize just being just completely over the top, and they don't care if they sell their soul to do it. Fine. There's another part of it though that I think comes from the general fan on Twitter, not even maybe the aggregator accounts, but just the fans of, if you're a Bills fan, you're a Ravens fan, Bengals, whoever. You can't beat them. You can't. I mean, I just laid it out. They're 23-1 in the last 24 games. They never lose. They never. And for all these people who say, well, it wasn't like this with the Patriots. Yes, because the first part of the dynasty there wasn't social media. Okay, there's social media now, and by the way, believe me, if Deflategate had happened during the peak of social media, if Spygate happened during the peak of social media, if all these things that we tied to New England in a negative sense had happened back then, it would have even been 10 times worse. It just wasn't the case then. But I've had Chiefs fans reach out to me. I can't even enjoy this because of what's going on. Bro, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Like, it's nonsensical. How many players have you heard come out and say, this is ridiculous? Pretty much every one.
Almost every one of them. I mean.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman came out and blasted this thing a day or two
right.
ago. Like, it's just, players know this is BS. They know it. Like, I will say this. I was surprised after the game I covered with Houston, where the Texans basically sat there and whined about it. And I was thinking to myself, like, you guys aren't as close to winning the Super Bowl as you think you are.
Exactly.
I'll give the Bills credit. You didn't hear one word out of the Bills after that game, right? They know what it takes to win. They haven't been able to do it, but they know it. Houston sitting there whining about the officials after the game. Like, do you guys really just give up 8 sacks? Like, you missed 3 kicks. You gave a huge kick return to start the game. You couldn't go up. Like, it's stuff that anybody who's serious knows is nonsense. But like, it's a topic because people in our industry look at it and go, "Hey, cool! I can become Twitter famous for it." And unfortunately, that seems to rule the day with some of these individuals.
Yeah, go look at something cool and better, like at Sports Illustrated, and educate yourself with the 50 most memorable games in NFL Super Bowl history. It was an awesome read, and like you said, 9 months of putting that thing together with all of the different people that helped out in 27,000 words. It is awesome stuff. Matt, enjoy Mobile. We'll be checking out the Twitter and your daily notebooks there at SI, and we'll see you down in New Orleans next week, brother.
Hey, sounds good. Take care.
There's Matt Verderam, Sports Illustrated. Again, go check that out. They released 1 through 25 today, and 26 through 50 they released, I think it was a couple days ago. It might have been yesterday that I read that one. But Chiefs show up 7 times in the 50 most memorable games in NFL Super Bowl history, and just an amazing number that 5 of those are with Patrick Mahomes. A tenth of all the games played. It's not just postseason games, playoff games. It's every single game, regular season, postseason, Super Bowl, whatever. The 50 most memorable games, and the Chiefs show up with Patrick Mahomes specifically 5 times, a tenth of the entire games played. And it's not just one man's opinion. It's 37 different panelists of all of these different people that have covered and been executives and played and coached in the NFL putting this ranking together. So really cool stuff from Matt Verderame. Go check that out. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. Mick Schaefer comes up at the 1 o'clock hour. More Zone next. Radio 810 WHB. Thank you to Matt Verderame joining us. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up at 1 o'clock. we'll see what he has to say. We're heading to the Super Bowl. He's driving to the Super Bowl. We know that. Driving down to the Super Bowl. But yeah, we talked about at the beginning of the show, 5 of the 50 games in the most memorable NFL games of all time in the Super Bowl era that Matt Verderam put together with like the 30 whatever panelists, that 5 of them involve Patrick Mahomes. So a 10th of all of the games involve Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback. It's just
in NFL.
It's just crazy.
History.
Yeah, and he's been playing for 7 years. He's played in 7 AFC Championship games and 5 Super Bowls. As of February 9th will be his 5th Super Bowl that he's played in already.
He likes keeping it close, which helps.
Yeah,
he enjoys the drama.
That's a great point. That's a great point. He always keeps it close for the ratings and things like that. And so by doing those things, it creates great games.
Yeah.
It's perfect. He's just smarter than everybody else. Good God, he's so smart. He's so smart. How do you go down with legacies if you can't have fourth quarter comebacks?
Yeah.
You can't have a fourth quarter comeback if you're dominating a team and leading throughout the entire fourth quarter. It's just smart, man.
I always say you can't come back unless you start from behind.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to,
trademark.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to start from behind, but you just have to be behind at some point. But that is still true. You know, you should trademark that, like three-peat or Chiefs Pete or Pete and repeat.
You can't say three-peat. That's Pat Riley's.
Oh, did I have to pay $1 there? What do I got to pay?
I don't know.
What if I say the?
It's hair
is
gel.
that Ohio State's?
It's probably the hair gel.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I got to buy some mousse for him. I just said the. Did I got to pay money to Ohio State now? Taco Tuesday, I got to pay money to LeBron.
Yeah, that one was the one I have the biggest gripe about. Is that what was worse, the for Ohio State or Taco Tuesday that LeBron thought he created that?
Yes.
That might be even wilder.
We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up on the other side of the break.
Sorry, I didn't mean to rip on your goat. Right
No, it was a
there,
joke.
LeBron.
No, I see. The thing is, though, the difference between me and the Jordan stands are I present some of the shortcomings of LeBron. Jordan stands think he never made a mistake, which kind of kills your argument if you think that he's perfect and never lost a game or missed shots or anything. You know, LeBron has plenty of shortcomings. Still the GOAT.
I'm a Robert Horry man myself.
That makes sense. You know what? Big
Yeah.
Shot Bob. They didn't call him Big Shot Mike. Yeah.
And I said, sure, I'm going to go to the base camp and work out at noon. And he goes, well, we're going to Joe's. So yeah, I did that.
Twice.
I did.
So you went to Joe's and then worked it right off.
I did.
Good for you, man.
How about me? I was a little worried.
You worked
for a
out
second.
after eating lunch?
After Joe's.
Wow, that's a dangerous
11
thing.
bells at Joe's.
11 bells at Joe's, and then 12 bells you went and worked it all off.
And I met a lady who knows Mick from Caldwell, Kansas.
Oh, how about that? She's from Caldwell?
She's from Caldwell.
She
Babysat
is.
him.
I worked on their farm for 5 years.
So here's the deal. All the lies we thought he was telling about working on a farm, they're true.
Wow, how about that, huh?
They're true.
Yeah, so
I mean,
he worked in the kitchen on the farm. He didn't actually do any yard work.
I prepared the meals.
What are the
for
odds?
the guys in the tractors?
What are the odds of Todd meeting one of the 10 people in Caldwell that you grew up with?
Listen, that's kind of like it's where civilization started, right?
Everybody says
everybody is a couple degrees separated.
What's that?
from Caldwell. Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia
Yes, Caldwell
is the Mesopotamia of Kansas,
really.
Some say.
Yeah, I think most everybody says that like it's in the Bible.
It is
that
Ruth was from there.
BC and AD.
Yeah, we got some. Yeah, we have some Ruths.
Yep, that's right. So the famous apple.
I mean,
it's a very famous apple. It was right there in Caldwell.
I'm Joseph Michael. Joseph was
that's
Joseph
exactly
was in the Bible.
right.
Your first name's not Mick?
Oh boy, we've been through this.
Oh my God, it's Mitch.
That's Mitch. There we go.
That's it. You nailed it.
Mitch,
or Nick.
Mick.
It's Mitch Nick Schaefer.
And then
Mitch,
just
Nick.
to make
Why
it
do you have
more...
7 first names? I don't know. My parents were odd. It's an odd combination. So were my parents.
So were my parents.
Is Jason your first name, or have I been lied to?
No, it's my first name.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Sterling. I mean, that can't be your real first name, right?
That's got to be a nickname,
That's
right?
That's not a real name, right?
Somebody was saying, hey, he always
Somebody
finishes
said,
second.
yes, let's do this.
Somebody's like, Jeff always finishes second. Let's call him Sterling.
Jeff's my father.
Are you Jeff Jr.?
Mr.
Sterling is my first name.
Mr. Holmes is my father.
What are you going to do to your first kid? Are you going to give him a name like Sterling? I hope not.
I think Mobile.
Mobile Holmes?
That took me a second. That's dumb and funny at the same time.
Wasn't there a
I love
Maryland
it.
basketball player with the last name of Guest and his name was House? His name was House Guest. I think there might have been that.
I don't know. I think
I always
Archer
love
would be
fun
good.
names.
Archer Holmes would be pretty good.
Archer Holmes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Great 3-point shooter.
Patma.
It's actually his middle name is Ma. So it's Pat Ma Holmes.
Yeah.
If you have a daughter, you can name her Sterling Ma.
Sterling Ma.
My daughter's name's Sterling Ma Holmes. No way! No way your daughter is named that.
I mean,
that is
You
good.
have a big opportunity here. You could have
Yeah,
a
but-
lot of fun. You could ruin
Seriously.
your kids.
Bronze.
Yeah.
I could have ruined their.
Bronzema?
Well, I could ruin their lives multiple ways, probably. Knowing that,
What's your son's name? Bronzema. Yeah, it's a family name. It goes back centuries to Caldwell, Kansas.
If the Mesopotamia, what if the Mahomeses have another kid? It's like yellow ribbon, right? It's got to be the 4th place. Is that what you get for?
I don't know. Is it a participation trophy?
I got a lot of those. I think they were yellow.
They just call them participation.
Yes, right, yes.
I have no idea what that would be the case. But he says he's done for a while.
Yeah.
So
He said a growing family that's hopefully not growing anymore.
Hopefully not growing anytime soon.
What's growing is his trophy case.
What if he says, honey, we have to have a kid for every Super Bowl we win?
I mean, they've got 3 kids and 3 rings.
Yeah.
He's
kept up so far.
Yeah. I think it's worth it.
Got to keep up with the Mahomeses.
Hopefully maybe he'll be able to, run his own farm with his kids.
Well, eventually, as a dad, what if he came to you like, okay, you give me another Super Bowl, but you have to take another kid? After a while, you're like, you know what? I've got enough Lombardi trophies.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Cromartie gave it a shot. He was trying to get one. He was like, I'm hoping to get one out of these.
Phillip
I'm having
Rivers.
Tyreek Hill had 3 in 1 year trying to get. He was like, I am tripling
Well, I think he
down
had more than
on
3
this
in 1
chance.
year.
That's an incredible ratio right there.
Yes.
I am tripling down on my chances. Pat has one, and he wins a Super Bowl.
So you had triplets? No.
No, I did not. Irish twins? No, not really. No, so no, not.
Is that
not
Tom
that
Brady?
either.
No, it's Phillip Rivers. You would think so with all the kids, but no, he never won one.
Oh, that daughter's wrapped around his finger. Well, he's got plenty of space. He doesn't have rings.
No rings.
No rings there, so you can wrap right around his finger. That's true. Mick, how are you today, man? You seem like you're in a good mood.
Happy.
You feeling good?
We're finally here. Finally to Friday of this week, right, guys?
That's right. Friday's
right, guys?
here.
Right?
Hump
right,
day.
guys? What?
Friday's hump day, baby.
God, it's not Friday.
It is not.
Happy Kansas Day.
Is Wednesday Kansas Day?
Yeah, it's the 29th. It's not really. It's a different
I
day
thought
each
every
year.
Wednesday was
January
Kansas Day.
29th, 1861. Kansas Day. And I am a guy who has never lived, which is amazing,
I agree with
outside the state of Kansas.
Oh, not even for like a couple weeks?
No, not even for a college, for a job, nothing. I've spent my entire life having an address inside the state of Kansas.
That's pretty interesting.
That is maybe not. Maybe it's the exact opposite.
It's the
of
opposite.
I mean,
interesting.
it's interesting
The
because
least
it's not.
interesting men in the world.
It sounds like it's like California. Never been outside California.
I've only had 4.
4 states you've lived in?
4, yeah. Missouri, Kansas, Wyoming, and Kentucky.
I think I have 3.
Wyoming, yeah.
I have 3.
Missouri, Kansas.
Missouri, Kansas, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Indiana.
I didn't live there. That was my
I see.
address, though.
I see.
I've been close. I grew up 2 miles from Oklahoma. My first 18 years lived
I
there.
just go there and get a 1-month apartment.
The last 23, 24 years, I've been 10 miles from Missouri.
You're a
Sitting there.
homebody. It's okay.
So
Yeah,
close.
I get close. I'm just
Yeah, you're like teetering. Like
I'm on the rim jobbing it.
Do I want to get in the water or not?
Dylan
Man,
was
kinda
so
cool.
mad at
This
you
is crazy.
right there.
This is crazy. This is crazy.
Dip a toe. I'm like, no.
Oh no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just
Coming
gonna
from the
stay
guy
here.
that always is like, oh, there's so many innuendos in our cuts.
What's wrong with you? He was talking about.
And I've worked in Missouri the last
That's true.
2.5 decades.
Yeah.
too.
When your address, when they send stuff to your work, when they send the fan letters,
Yeah.
that they send to
When
you.
Uncle Sam sends out the yearly tax bills, like, we're going to lop off 1% just because you live in Kansas and work in Missouri. Thanks, Missouri.
That uncle
Thanks,
seems
Casey
to
Mo.
always come around this
bad
time.
uncle.
Just
He's a bad uncle.
asking for money. Oh,
The worst.
He spends it
Samuel's coming over.
He spends it wisely, though.
Yeah,
all the
he
time.
does. He does.
Samuel's heading over. Doesn't he have like 7 cars now? Yeah, but he's going to be asking for money. He's ran out again.
Yeah.
So Samuel, dude, can we just not invite him this year? No, he's the law.
Yeah.
He works for the law, so he kind of runs this town. He runs this 7 pony town. So he runs Caldwell. So we've got to do it, or he's going
That's
to put
way
us in
too
jail.
many ponies.
Sorry. It's a pony. It's a pony. Mick Schaefer is our guest here on Sports Radio
We
810
wasted 12 minutes so far,
WHB. Mick, riddle me this.
Yeah.
How do I leave the KU game last night, or at least leave watching the KU game, and think that team scored 91 points, yet it felt like they weren't functional offensively? So, like, how do you explain that? And maybe you don't have the same feeling
Bad
as I did.
UCF defense
I
is
mean,
how.
maybe you don't have the same feelings I did. It just didn't feel like there was any cohesion. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, they scored 91 points.
The clock is the correct answer.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm trying to find an identity for this team because remember, I don't know, a few weeks ago when they were the defensive team, right? They would win games,
Yes.
scoring 54 points, and this is it. It's going to be the old school Bill Self style of defense. That didn't last long, and now they're back to scoring 91 points even without their point guard.
Yeah.
In the game, and so I don't know what their identity is, and it's getting close to February here, and they probably need to develop that. But Bill Self's teams, they usually get better, right? Within the season, they improve. They're not just who they are in November and December, but this is a team that needs to improve, quite frankly, because there's no game. I mean, the Houston game, I was going to come away with, like, okay, that's a good win over a great team, and no, they messed that up. And so you're not, the TCU game with the UCF is like, okay, yeah, you squeaked by these teams.
Mm-hmm.
You're collecting some wins, but not much of this is domination. And so they need to get turned around, figured out.
And part of the frustration is, coming off the TCU game when Storr played 22 minutes, scored 12 points, went 6 of 8 from inside the arc. Had 6 rebounds in the game, and you're like, all right, this is see if this is a jumping off point. But let's see, this was sort of a mile number 1. Let's see what mile marker 2, 3, and 4 looks like before you get ready for Iowa State. And he's played a total of 25 minutes since and scored a total of 5 points since then, including 0 against Houston.
You get excited for a different new guy seemingly every game. Rylan Griffin, right? Was the Houston game.
Right, Coit last night.
Coit, right? And Shaq Moore had his a week or two.
Defensive prowess.
And they're all, good pieces and good players, but this day and age, man, it's tougher to develop team chemistry when you have all these hired guns that so many of them are coming in on one-year contracts, and they're arriving from all over the place. They're different ages, from different backgrounds, different styles of offense and defense, and I think it's just tough to do it.
I wonder too,
even if
like,
you're KU.
I'm going to compare Bill Self to Bob Ross here because that's what most people compare them to.
I've never heard another comparison.
Right.
before.
I mean, it's like Bill Self is the Bob Ross of coaching. Yeah. But if you look at Bill Self over the years, and maybe let's compare him to like teams this year. So you got some of the top teams in America. Certainly Houston is one of them. Auburn is really good. Duke is playing phenomenal basketball right now.
Yeah,
and
KU might have the best win of the year because they beat Duke. Now,
right.
Granted, it's a long time ago. I don't think it'll be the same way this time around. They played tomorrow.
In comparing, right, exactly. It's like sometimes when you play instead of how you play. But in comparing him to Bob Ross, like, you watch those Bob Ross specials back in the day, and as he starts making the painting, you're like, well, he's got something over there, and then as it goes along, the bubbling little brook and the happy little trees all come together to make this incredible scene. Where I wonder if, say, like a team like Duke or Auburn, like they're towards the end and they're putting like final touches on it, where Bill Self has like all of these different parts that are scattered. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take February for it all come together for you to go, okay, that's how it's fitting. Yeah. Which they're running out of runway to be able to figure that out. But we've seen Bill Self do that before. It's just, can he do it with this team where you go, okay, you got Coit this day and Shaq that day, and A.J. Storr does this and KJ does this, and then Flory does this, and DeJuan Harris there, and Hunter Dickinson there, and Zeke and Griffin. If come tournament time, if it molds together and you go, oh, there's the scene. Okay, that's what it was looking like all along. We just didn't see it at the time.
Yeah. I think Missouri kind of has a similar situation right now. The difference is, again, both teams are winning at a fairly similar clip right here. Expectations were just higher for Kansas. But Missouri at any given day has 12 or so, 11 or 12 guys. They're like, let's see who plays tonight.
They have way too many guys.
They have too
right
many,
now.
but honestly, it's not a bad situation to have because they go game by game, and that's more or less what Bill Self needs to do, and he's being forced to do that. He just doesn't have 11 or 12 guys. He has about 7 or 8 guys he really trusts. But I think there's some similarities
I think
in that.
KU's way deeper than Mizzou. Just because Mizzou plays more guys, I wouldn't say they're deeper. I would say the 9, 10, 11 guys, 9, 10, 11 on KU's team are better than Mizzou's. Substantially.
I don't know. I mean...
Well, I do. I know about that.
I'm kind of looking just to see, like, well, I mean,
maybe rankings-wise, but are the 9, 10, 11 guys on Kansas, are they freshmen? Or are the 9, 10, 11 guys on... Well, my point is...
Who would it be for Mizzou?
Who would you be? Mitchell and Bates.
No. 9,
Sorry,
10, 11.
I know. I'm eliminating the first ones
Okay,
first to get to who the 9, 10, 11. So you'd have Mitchell, Bates, Robinson,
Gray,
Grill, Perkins would be.
It'd probably
in the
be
top 9.
Warwick would be one of those guys. Probably Dylan Cruz
or Jacob.
Not Dylan.
Yeah, Jacob.
Not the
Cruz.
baseball player. Jacob Cruz would be one of those guys.
Aiden Shaw.
Maybe Aiden Shaw. I guess my point here is Missouri has guys that have a specific role a lot of times, it feels like, on that team. They can go game by game.
I do think I do feel like Missouri right now, maybe Dennis Gates has figured out some roles more of how it's fitting together.
He's
honing,
definitely
getting the most.
Each game is a clean slate, right? And we're going to, what are the strengths here? What are the weaknesses? I'm going to pull out Cruz off the bench. He hasn't played in 3 games. He's going to play 20 minutes this game.
Drops
right?
12 points.
Yes. And so
I think there's this is your role. You know this role. You know that role. And sort of now it's kind of trying to maximize that through February, where I think Kansas is still trying to piece some things together. Like there were, again, no DeJuan Harris and KJ returning, and Storr and Coit playing more, and Shaq more back. There were some lineups last night. You're like, wow, I haven't seen that this year really much, if at all, this year out on the court.
And I don't think either way it's a problem. Depth is a problem for Mizzou or KU. I think it's more just it's chemistry at this point, and what are the right combinations and all that stuff. KU is definitely struggling with, and Mizzou, I mean, they're playing in a tougher league, and they're tougher games in. And the best thing about Mizzou, Sterling, is that they're kind of part of the group now. They're in the top 25, and everybody's going to go 1-1 every week, right? For the most part.
Pretty much,
And they
yes.
moved up a spot, right?
Yeah.
They went 1-1 and moved up. So did KU.
Yeah.
And it was impossible to do these stupid AP Top 25s because I want to punish these teams. They should have lost to this team. You want to drop them 3 spots. Can't do it because the 4 teams below them all lost and had kind of like a worse resume that week.
Well, Missouri only has 1 game this week. That's Saturday against
win
a
it.
good
Yes,
against a
exactly.
good team
On the road
at
at
Mississippi State. But a lot of cowbells.
Yeah, Ken Palm has it as a 5-point loss for Mizzou right now.
But I think I think KU first of all is in the group of them, UConn, Gonzaga, Arizona, maybe Baylor, those teams that have taken too many losses for how good they should be. And you mentioned okay, are they going to get it back? I bet you there's 1 or 2 or 3 of those teams out of that group that gets it back and makes that run in March. And you're like, okay, yes, that's why we had this team at number 4 going into the season. We'll just see if KU's one of those teams because a lot of times they get it together, but a lot of times they don't. A lot of times they'll fizzle out and not play the seed in the tournament.
Yeah, Purdue is an interesting one too because they've got 5 losses.
Yeah,
just
Purdue's
as,
one of those
as
teams. Yep.
Kansas does, and it's like the analytics love Purdue, but they've got 5 losses. Those losses, I don't think they have a bad one. They lost to Marquette. They lost to Ohio State. Ohio State was a home game, so that was a bad one. At least from the standpoint of
what they should be.
Win the damn game. Auburn neutral court, Texas A&M neutral court, not bad. Penn State on the road, they lost by double digits. That's not great. So yeah, I think they have probably a couple questionable losses there, but it's they should be better than the 16-5 record that they are at least, or that they have at least. What some of the numbers would say.
I really think Dennis Gates knows what he has, knows his identity of his team more than KU does right now. I think KU's a better team. Obviously, Mizzou got the win. Tiger fans don't. I have so many. We have half the newsroom went to Missouri, right? And so every week they're like,
"Really in TV?"
It's weird. I know.
That's odd.
They're like, is this the week you're gonna put Mizzou ahead of Kansas? I'm like, you both went 1-1. This isn't the week. Go beat Texas last week. Yes, that's the whole deal. You go 2-0 in a week. The 5 teams in front of you are going to be going 1-1. So you make a big jump. So that's good news for Mizzou. They're part of the cool kids club of okay, everybody in college basketball. It's hard to do what Duke's doing right now. How many games they won in a row?
Yeah,
13
and
or
Cooper
whatever.
Flag just simply playing dominant basketball every night. Yeah. It's just
they look the part too. And they're all freshmen.
Right, and I think that's where it's they're putting the final touches. They're just figuring out. You see the painting already. Yeah. Now it's just honing in on one more little happy. Oh, now we're just adding the snow to part of the tree over here on the left for to continue the Bob Ross comparison because nothing says cool and hip like making a Bob Ross comparison. So that's awesome. And it's mainly the hair thing that I think is the comparison between Bob Ross and Bill Self.
Very similar.
Very, very similar.
I think Vandy's been one of the most surprising teams this year. Vandy's been surprisingly good. Yeah.
I'm glad you said something because I was looking for a dismount to go to break. And
I didn't know. You felt like you were flailing there with Bob Ross.
That's a good win for Mizzou.
I feel like you were doing the happy little tree.
I was trying to do a happy little go to break, but I couldn't figure it out, man. I was just kept messing it up, man. It's what? It's happy. Everything's a happy little mistake, just like that was. Well, I'll tell you this, when my wife and I were looking to renovate our house, or at least try to... Monday on their show. We didn't get around to playing it yesterday. I apologize. Hit the cutting room floor. Then I thought, you know what? Let me play this with Mick Schaefer because he would like this. So they decided to take. You know what? I'm not even going to say that because I don't know if they actually were talking about the refs or not. But they weighed in on Xavier Worthy being pretty good, and worst case scenario, as it turns out, for that trade in April. But here's Jeremy and Joe show, WGR 550 in Buffalo, weighing in on the Xavier Worthy trade.
The day the Bills make the trade with the Chiefs, the draft, the next day we come in, and it's, I mean, what's going to happen, guys? You're going to go to the AFC Championship game. That guy's going to score a touchdown, and you have to wear that.
And he's going to lead the game, and, I mean, he had over 100 yards.
And
he was the best weapon on either, I guess Cook maybe, but.
That happened. It actually all happened.
Yeah.
You needed a receiver unbelievably badly. Traded out of a spot. They needed one badly. You gave them the guy they wanted, and then the guy that you took, he's fine, but he's not ready for that game. He's not a factor in that game. The tight end you took the year before. I mean, all roads for me, of course, lead back to the wide receiver train. They always do. When they needed a receiver and they took Dalton Kincaid, that was a mistake. But, okay, fine. Kincaid's going to be a finger quote matchup nightmare. That never happens. That never happened. He's a guy that can catch the ball. Think of him like a receiver. If we did, he'd be a bigger bust than Quentin Johnston. We have to think of him like a tight end because as a receiver, he'd be a monster bust. His numbers are never impressive. And then he drops a pass. Best pass catcher in the class, they said. Puka Nakua's in that class. I'm not expecting you to know he would be better, but the Kincaid thing has never really worked out the way that I feel like they thought it would.
Oh, it's not even. I mean, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison also have both developed into great receivers.
JSN, right there.
JSN. That ended up being a pretty good receiving class.
Those are three great receivers, good to great receivers that they probably could have used and needed, and instead they went the tight end route, and, you know, it's fine. It's fine. Everybody eats.
That was the motto earlier this year. Everybody eats. Hey, we got all these. We don't have Stephon Diggs, but we got Kincaid and Knox and Shakir and Samuel and Keon Coleman. Everybody's going to eat on this team.
It's fine. It's fine. Everybody eats.
And look, they had a great year. Right?
They
played a great
did.
AFC Championship game, and I'm kind of wondering what are the analytics on just number one outstanding diva wide receivers? How often do they win Super Bowls? Because the Chiefs have won 9 straight games in the playoffs now without Tyreek Hill, who was great, who won 2 Super Bowl with Kansas City, right? I'm not saying he
went to 2, but 1.
But I'm just saying, are we overvaluing receiver a little much here?
And by the way, it's a little disingenuous because JSN went 20, Zay Flowers 22, Addison 23, Kincaid went 25. You look at some of the receivers.
Well, Rashee Rice was after.
Sure, Rashee Rice was after. Sam Laporta is the one I think you can look at.
Well, Sam Laporta, if they were looking tight end, but Reed went to the Packers.
He went at pick 50.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're talking 25 picks after there. I don't have. Again, I understand they're going to be upset with it. I still think they're being a little too harsh on Kincaid. I think that was a very, very difficult play. I think
Kincaid, tough catch. I mean, he's breaking off his route. He's turning around in midair, and it's not. People have equated it to the Mark Andrews catch. It's very different.
Yeah, but by the way, there were a long list of guys before the next wide receiver who was taken. Jonathan Mingo was the next wide receiver taken.
I think that was more commentary on Brandon Beane than Dalton Kincaid. I think that was more commentary on the GM of, hey, you needed a receiver last year. Okay, you went the Kincaid route and you said he was going to be a matchup nightmare because look what Kelsey's doing. Okay, you needed a receiver this year. You traded out of that spot so the Chiefs can trade up and get the specific guy they want, who had 101 total yards and a touchdown in that matchup. And by trading back, you claimed to get the guy you wanted, and he had 1 catch for 12 yards in that game. And if you combine the last 2 first-round picks for the Buffalo Bills that were there to provide the weapons for Josh Allen, then you're looking at Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman, which ended up being 3 receptions for 25 yards in that game on 8 targets. 8 targets, 3 receptions, 25 yards, back-to-back first-round draft picks. The Chiefs' first-round draft pick this year was awesome. Chiefs first-round draft pick last year didn't play many snaps. Chiefs' second-round draft pick last year was going to be a big focal part of this offense to allow Xavier Worthy to come along slower. That didn't happen. He had to expedite his maturing process, and to his credit, he did. yeah, I can understand the frustration there because, and this is where, you know, the pushback was immediate, but it was because I was a Chiefs fan as to why the pushback was there, obviously. When there was the Dalton Kincaid, like he's like Travis Kelce. And no, he's not. He's not like Travis. Well, look what he's doing in Buffalo. Yeah, but he's not like Travis Kelce. Just because he's a receiving tight end and he has some athleticism doesn't make him somebody that understands where defenses are going to be and how to manipulate the zone and to be in certain spots. You're not Travis Kelce if you're just running a route on a paper. If you're just running a line on paper, you're not Travis Kelce.
Yeah. Remember the FAU draft, just really quickly? I remember a defensive alignment that the Chiefs and a lot of folks really wanted the Chiefs to draft.
Was that the Philadelphia Eagles' Nolan Smith?
No, that too.
Okay, well, I'm sorry.
On the defensive line specifically,
Oh,
remember Mozzie Smith?
I was going to say,
everyone was like, you got to trade up and get Mozzie Smith.
Well, I didn't say that.
Well, no, but that was actually a storyline.
Well, that was like, wasn't it that I think it was Nate Taylor that said that the Chiefs were trying to trade up to 26 for the Cowboys, that it was for Mozzie Smith?
And his PFF grade this year, you want to take a little guess at what it was?
No, I don't know what it is.
Low.
34.8. He was one of the worst players in all of football. Sometimes, you know, we complain about FAU.
Yeah.
Could be a lot worse.
Well,
could have traded
I would
up
say
and got
this
that guy.
too. I mean, there's
what's Miles Murphy? Look up Miles Murphy too. I want to because that was a guy as the player kept slipping down further and further draft. Maisie Smith was one of them. Miles Murphy, Nolan Smith, those were guys that were like, oh my god.
Miles Murphy went to the Bengals.
Yeah,
he had 0 sacks this year.
Yeah, I know. He was a defensive end from Clemson, and it was like, wow, you get Miles Murphy. It's like you can get back-to-back Karlaftis.
Has he had a sack in his career yet?
I would say
Go ahead,
not every situation is the same. If you go to one town in Jacksonville, it would not have been the same had you come to Kansas City, and that's maybe one of the things we don't talk about enough with Andy Reid and his coaches is the development of players.
If you go to Jacksonville,
you went to Jacksonville.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
You went to Jacksonville.
They love their county there.
They are big.
And Baltimore, they love their state flag, and they love their county in Jacksonville.
Yeah, so Miles Murphy had 0 sacks with a 56.5 grade according to PFF this year.
What about last year?
Last year, 3 sacks with
he's got 3 career sacks.
Yeah, and then FAU had 3 sacks this year in a lot less playing time. He had a 58.4 grade, which was actually just a little below league average.
It's funny because they'll be playing against Nolan Smith in the Super Bowl, and for those that wanted Nolan Smith, and it was like, you know that Spags is not going to have Nolan Smith on his team because now we know for a fact since they traded for Joshua Uche, a smaller, faster defensive end, and he's not even active. Like Nolan Smith was not a guy. It was D Ford. Like a really fast, smaller guy that's not going to help in the run. That's just going to run around the edge. Like no, they got Spags and then traded D Ford. So they didn't. They moved on from him right when they got Spags because he was looking for different types of defensive ends. One by the name of Frank Clark. That was a bigger guy that can stop the run. He likes interchangeable pieces. Nolan Smith wasn't that guy. Miles Murphy was somebody that was being talked about as like, wow, if you get Miles Murphy, again, it's George Karlaftis. Maybe it's because they're both white. No, Miles Murphy's not white. That was who was?
I was going to say,
Miles
I'm looking at Miles Murphy's picture. I'm like, I don't.
No,
think
who was?
so.
Who was the defensive lineman that was? Gosh darn it! It was like, what was it? It doesn't matter. Certainly wasn't Maisie Smith. Wasn't Aiden Hutchinson. They didn't have a chance to draft.
What year are you talking about? 2023 draft.
The guy that went to the Saints. Is it,
Trey Hendrickson?
No, right before the Chiefs. I'm talking about right there for the Chiefs, where the Chiefs were drafting. There was a dude that was a defensive lineman, tackle or end. I can't remember what it was.
Brian Breesy?
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Okay.
Got him. Found it. Not Miles Murphy, though. Not the same guy. But Miles Murphy has not been good. Was he even active at times with the against the Chiefs this year? Because there were some games where he was inactive.
Brian Breesy had a nice year. He had 17 games, 7.5 sacks.
Yeah, I mean, Karlaftis.
I feel like it's not good if you.
So I got the wrong name.
Naming first-round draft picks, and then the next question is, who does he play for? Like, I don't think it turned out very well if that's the line of questioning with Miles Murphy and others.
Yeah, but and Brian Breesy. He's Breezy.
Another one.
Brian Breesy, but he's certainly been better than Miles Murphy. But Nolan Smith wasn't going to. Even if Nolan Smith was there and FAU was there, they're not taking Nolan Smith. I mean, maybe there would have been a team that wanted to trade up and take Nolan Smith. Plus, I mean, come on, he went to Georgia. Philadelphia was taking him. If there's a Georgia player, Philadelphia.
And the draft was in Kansas City. They were going to take a Kansas City guy.
Exactly. That's right. Now, if the Chiefs were really going to trade up and make a move, then that would have been to go get Jalen Carter, not Maisie Smith. Then you're like, all right, here's some first-rounders. But, yeah, so I think that commentary from the people in Buffalo was more about Brandon Beane. It's back-to-back first-round picks that were supposed to be players that created matchup problems against the Chiefs to help Josh Allen and make him an even better player, and not just say, well, it's Stephon Diggs that he can throw to and Dawson Knox. No, now you got a Travis Kelce. Now you got another wide receiver that's going to be, this stud. And now look at the offense with James Cook and this offensive line. And instead, it's back-to-back first-round draft picks that don't look like they're going to be that inspiring in helping an offense moving forward.
I think it's too quick to say for both those guys. I just think that the initial...
I just said it doesn't look like.
It looks like. I know.
Not going to.
I'm not trying to take their side. I just think it's a little early. I think Keon Coleman showed flashes. I think Dalton Kincaid looked better as a rookie than he did this year, which is, maybe a little concerning.
But I would say that real quick as we go to break, Sterling, just to interrupt you, I apologize. I'm not apologizing.
He doesn't care.
I love you.
We saw Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy.
Olive juice.
Right, so olive oil. So we see Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, what they did. I know first-rounder, but second-rounder, Rashee Rice. What they did as the season progressed. And then we saw Sky Moore. And it was like, oh, no, Sky Moore, this is the year he's going to break out. Well, no, Sky Moore, this is the year he's going to break out. It's like, well, Kincaid, this is a second year, now it's Kincaid. All right, third year, now it's Kincaid. He's better than Sky. Keon Coleman will probably be better than Sky Moore. But we saw it with Rashee Rice, and we've seen it with Xavier Worthy. You're hoping you see it with those two first-round draft picks, just as people around Kansas City were hoping Sky Moore would show something. And he's not, and that's why we're talking about the guys who are out there on the field. But we'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. Had a Bills fan in my mentions yesterday who apparently is a poker player as well. At least that was his Twitter handle and a lot of his tweets on his timeline, a poker player that was complaining about the refs. So I just said, I bet you blame the cards, too. Poker player. It's always the cards' fault for you, huh? Yeah, it's always the cards. I lost because it's the cards, man.
The cards are a very big part of poker. I mean,
refs are a big part of NFL, too. But, it's always the cards' fault.
Although what I say, it's a pair of balls beats any hand in poker.
I love that line. If I was good at poker, I would know it. But I'm not good at poker, and mainly because I don't play. Yeah. If I played, oh boy, I would be so good at it. I mean, let me just tell you there. I doubt it. I don't know. Let's hear from a guy who's a pretty good returner for the Chiefs, and he has shown that the last 2 postseason games. And the kickoff return against the Houston Texans, the punt return before halftime against the Buffalo Bills, and he was on Up and Adams this morning with Kay Adams. She had Nico Remigio on and talked about, mentioned the kickoff return last week, but of course the punt return in this game that set up a touchdown for the Chiefs.
You followed up with a casual 41-yard punt return to flip the field against the Buffalo Bills, who wanted it so bad. What happened here in the second quarter?
Yeah, I mean, Trav came up to me earlier in the game, and I had fair caught that first punt coming out the gates, and he was like, "That's not being great, bro." And so I knew going into this next opportunity that I had, I'm like, I got to make something happen. And so I went and took a peek down the field and saw that the guys were, it was going to be tight and it was going to be a quick play, and just made it happen.
Wait, Travis comes up to you at what point? And so, take me through that.
So this was the first punt that they had kicked, and I had went and fair caught it on the 10. And really I had some room and I had an opportunity to take the punt. But, I was like, man, this is my first time being in the AFC Championship game. Like, let me just get my feet wet a little bit. And, I went and I ran to the sideline, and he was like, "That's not being great." And I'm like, he's right. And so, I went out there the next punt, and I was like, I'm taking it regardless. And, he was the first one to greet me coming to the sideline, and he was like, that's how you be great, dog. And I was like, oh man, this is a dream. So.
Hold on, Trav. Maybe the coaches don't want him to take it out. Maybe with time and situation and score and all that, they said down it. Okay.
No, it was that first punt. I thought the same thing when he caught that at the 10-yard line. There was no Bill in the screen. There was nobody in the screen to be like, "Hey, why did you fair catch that? You had plenty of room." And so, as he said, this is a minute into the AFC Championship game. Just let me get my feet wet. Like, I'm just going to catch the ball, fair catch, let's roll. Chiefs went 90 yards. It didn't affect them. They went. In fact, it made it more impressive that they went 90 yards and scored that touchdown. But how about your first ever AFC Championship game? You're not active very often. You're now the returner for this team. You come over to the sideline in the AFC Championship. Fair catch. Cool. Here you go, ref. Run off the field. And Travis looks at you and goes, "That's not being great."
It's what Dave told me to do. Trav, come on.
What's that?
You think
you got to be? If we're going to win, you got to be great. Apparently, that's probably the message. If we're going to win, you got to be great. And he comes off, and the only thing he says to him is, "That's not being great."
It's like you think Andy tells me to lateral that ball. No,
I
just do it. I'm being great.
You got to be great in these moments. Go be great. Make a play. Go be great.
You think Remigio has the stones when Travis gets tackled at the 5 on that bill wrong to be like, "Hey, that's not being great." Okay, being great, scoring right there, Trav.
But Travis dropped the quick wide receiver or tight end screen to him on the outside. He dropped
I'll
it.
Say
Remo.
no.
It's not being great, Trav.
He does not.
Come on, Killer, Trav. That's not being great, man. Let's roll here. But yeah, that's how about that? Travis comes right up to him. It's not being great, man. But also, you know what? If that got him to then say, "I'm taking this next one no matter what," that's pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome because he made a play, and we'll see if another return coming up in the Super Bowl. Tyler Dunn, who has Go Long TD Substack and podcast. He's in Buffalo and covers the Bills, and but he also has overall NFL Substack covering different things. But so looking at a lot of the commentary about refs and everything, so I was kind of curious what he said. And I thought this was a really good passage. I wanted to read this. He said, on 4th and 1, no question, the Bills may have received an unfortunate spot that'll likely serve as a source of pain for Western New Yorkers the next 12 months. But in that moment, tough, life goes on. What happened next was a painfully familiar sight for this defense this time of year. Buffalo folded faster than a rickety tailgate table. In a humiliating 5-play sequence, Patrick Mahomes made quick and easy work of the unit. He dashed around the right end for 7 yards, gained 29 yards to Juju Smith-Schuster over the middle. After a pair of Kareem Hunt runs, the best player in the sport then tore around the edge of Buffalo's defense for a 10-yard score. After a Buffalo TD tied it up, the Chiefs then pieced together a winning field goal drive. Even with benefit of a sack and a tail end of that drive, the Bills surrendered an alarming 8.5 yards per play on the 2 most important defensive drives of the season. No pride, no fight, no will to win a championship from Sean McDermott's defense. The spot was rough, yes, but the response was 1,000 times worse.
I don't know. It's been portrayed that was the last play of the game. Are you sure that all happened?
I'm going to have to go back and look.
The game actually ended.
Yeah, I thought so.
Imagine
But I just appreciated that sort of breakdown of like, yeah, okay, fine. You got a tough break. Soren's brought up a couple times, and it's a great point. You know when we talked about the 2-point conversions starting that netted the Chiefs 3 points because the Chiefs got a penalty? But it was a great point. You know what the Chiefs did on the 2-point conversion? They made the stop. They didn't bitch and moan about Justin Reed wasn't offsides. Hold on. No, Justin Reed, this is BS, guys. Justin Reed, he wasn't offsides. And then they get the 2-point conversion. Oh, you called him offsides? Let's stop the 2-point conversion here. And let's go in. You know, some teams find ways to overcome what are bad calls. Some teams complain about the refs. Mick, what do you think?
I just hope both teams had fun.